Hey guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. So, today we are gonna see, what if Naruto wasn't in Uzumaki or Namikaze and got harem with Kushina and female Kyuubi, part 2. So before we start, please go check out the author of this fanfic, TheDemonKingNaruto, link is in the description. Also subscribe to our channel and like this video. So let's begin the video. Deep within the ravine, Naruto looked himself over and saw the tremendous changes that had overtaken his body. He flexed his arm outward and back. He looked to see his stature was now much bigger than it was before, taller than he expected to be. Looking at his hair, he saw the black highlights in them making him quirk an eyebrow, but he did feel the hair, it felt more like a lion's mane. That's when he felt the immense power flowing through and around him. It was like a maelstrom of power flowing in him, ready to burst out at any moment. Looking at the obliterated wall made him think, well, this is an unexpected change, but that's not important right now. First off, Konoha took Kushina-chan, that's one reason to destroy them all, but the way I am right now, one mistake could kill and destroy so many. That's when he pulled out a locket Iroh gave him before he escaped with Kushina. He knew it all too well. Flipping it open, he smiled warmly, seeing himself with Kushina in a picture on the right side, smiling with her in his arms. Stroking the picture gently, Naruto frowned. I've got to train these powers and master them, cause if I don't, who knows what would happen if I made the slightest mistake. But what if Kushina know they won't hurt her? She's too precious to them, bastards will get theirs. He closed the locket, not looking at the other picture, for it was for Kushina's eyes only. Besides, he knew what was on the other side. Looking around himself, he saw most of his belongings either trashed by the fall or destroyed by the explosion. Looking into his vest, he saw the scroll Iroh gave him along with the one he sealed up his and Kushina's own books and scrolls. Placing them back inside the vest pocket, Naruto looked up to see the night sky. He wondered how long he had been down here, but shook his head, not really caring, only to get his powers mastered and get Kushina back. Time to start training. The sooner I have them mastered, the sooner I can get Kushi-chan back. With that, Naruto started unsealing many camping supplies, marking the one site where he supposedly killed his new home for the next few years. Konoha would never know that their number one enemy was still alive and practically under their noses. Hanahagakure Hokage office. It's been 3 days since Sarutobi sent out his students along with most of his forces to secure Uzumaki Kushina and to kill Uzumaki Naruto. Since then, Hiruzen has been very jumpy lately. He truly believed his students killed Naruto, the very man that scared even him. But, even still, he had a feeling that something was wrong, something out of place. Looking over at his couch, he saw the still unconscious form of Uzumaki Kushina, last remaining Uzumaki and container of the Kyuubi no Kitsune. He heard of how the Z-rank shinobi fought to protect Kushina. The reports all shocked him to his very core. The man fought like he was possessed. Nothing could take him down. Weapons, Taijutsu, nothing. Even Jiraiya summoned Thingamabob and did nothing to anger Naruto further. He was speechless when Jiraiya told him of how he practically handled Gamabunta. He heard of how he took Gamabunta's own weapon and swung it back, making a scar over the giant toad's left eye. He looked over at Kushina and spoke so quietly, why would that man fight so hard to protect you? I wonder if it was something concerning you, or was it out of his own personal feelings he mused outwardly, wanting no need to know why a man of such power and fame would protect someone like her. Was it that he was in Uzumaki as well? Was that he was sent to protect her? It frustrated him greatly of why the man fought to protect her so greatly. Shaking his head, he looked back to his desk to read the reports from his spies all across the elemental nations. It was all reported that Konoha was the one to finally kill the legendary man himself. They had sent out a force bigger and stronger than both Iwa and Kumo's combined to kill the man. Well, that was what they told the public, but in reality it was a mission to capture Kushina. True, Konoha has suddenly got many enemies from the countries that saw the man as a hero, but weren't brave enough to start a fight with him. But they did receive the title strongest shinobi village in the whole elemental nations, since they were the ones to kill a man capable of beating a. Yes, they used underhanded tactics, but he's dead and gone, never to bother them and scare him again. Right? As Hiruzen was looking at the reports and thought he never saw the glowing of Jiraiya's seal upon Kushina's neck crack halfway through before disappearing once more. 10 years later. It has been 10 years since the death of Uzumaki Naruto, number one most hated shinobi of Iwa, Kumo, and Konoha. Ever since then, Konoha took pride in its title of being the strongest and proved it time and time again in the war. Ever since Naruto's death, it put quite a halt on the war all around, since it was such a shock to many. Over the years, Konoha has let their fame go to their heads and made many arrogant people think they were invincible after killing a godlike being all those years ago. With only a select few within knowing how false all that was, knowing the man could have easily destroyed them. But a few things have happened after all these years. Strange events have been popping up in a few countries, including AIM and Kiri. the rumored complete and utter defeat of Hanzo the Salamander, and the civil war starting all over again, this time with a new age following in the few steps of his predecessor. Strangely enough though, Kumo's hatred over Naruto began to dwindle over time since his death. It would seem Naruto finally gained a very high respect for the Raikage after his accomplishments against Konoha. Despite being mortal enemies, the Raikage held a great respect for the man for the things he did against Konoha. The ravine itself, the place where Naruto was killed, was soon upon by many votes by many countries, and feudal lords that were great friends to Naruto marked it as his tombstone for being the only true place a being like Naruto should be buried. What better place to honor a man that beat than to mark the place of his death than the great scar made from Ibiju's attack? But with one appearance, will shock the very nations themselves. Poorest of High no Kuni Road to Konohagakure. Walking on the dirt road to Konohagakure was a cloaked man. He stood at any normal human height of 5'8" or so. The cloak covered up the whole of the man's body. The way the man moved though told a different story from him looking totally normal in height. He moved like a fighter, an experienced soldier ready for the quickest ambush of any kind. This would unnerve many people, but it's usually common in the land of shinobi, so some just pass it off as normal. The thing was though that this man wasn't normal by any means. Raising his head a bit, you could see the blackness of the cloak shadowing the man's face, but that's when his eyes. The eyes would make any person, whether they be civilian, shinobi, Kage or even Biju, feel like nothing but an ant facing a giant tsunami. The overwhelming look in the man's golden amber slitted eyes just told you he wasn't normal. It practically screamed danger and would make any lesser man die of pure fear. With each step he took, the wind would blow past him, ruffling his cloak and making the trees rustle in the wind. Each time his eyes looked at the closing distance of Konoha, a great black hot hate would glow brightly in his eyes, making even the skies themselves part way. Each time his body seemed to pulsate in a strange wind, the ground would gradually crack or the trees themselves would start to uproot. I'm coming, Kushi-chan, and soon we'll be together again, and this time I won't fail you, Iroh, or anyone else ever again. Konoha was about to be rocked to its very core by this man's appearance alone. Konoha main gates. Standing at the gates were two on guard duty, the number one most hated job for any shinobi. It was the most boring thing any shinobi had to do. These two were no exception, except for the fact. This time their guard duty was about to get interesting. The wind suddenly blew past them as they saw a black cloaked figure coming inside of them. They both felt a little tense seeing the strange cloaked figure. After all, a war was going on, so they were suspicious of what was around them. When the cloaked man was right in front of them though, they felt relieved to see it looked like a normal person. That cost them greatly, since you don't judge a book by its cover. The man raised his head at them and flashed his eyes at them, and with a sudden pulse of wind they both flinched before falling back, passed out, eyes rolled to the back of their heads and foam coming out of their mouths. Looking down at the man shook his head in disapproval. Pathetic was the only word the man said before he entered the village, masking his signature from the patrolling shinobi and barrier watchers. As the man came into Konoha, his eyes quickly surveyed all of the things in front of him, memorizing them perfectly. He saw all the civilians, the patrolling shinobi, and the children all playing around like nothing was happening on the outside of these walls. The blissful smiles on their faces and carefree attitudes showed around him. The fools arrogant in their belief they're invincible, and all because of a simple lie. Distaste and anger was full in his mouth. That's when he saw the Yuzu no Kuni symbols upon their backs. The hatred in his eyes rose to monumental heights for that. That's when the man closed his eyes, reaching with his chakra sensory, trying to find the one person he came for. The slight widening of his eyes was the only reaction that was seen, but also the burning anger that flashed in his eyes also showed before his form just disappeared in nothing but a simple gust of wind. Peering over in the trees above, the man's cloaked form was looking down at what seemed like a training ground. But what he was looking at was what was important, for it was a total of 8 people in general, with 2 of them being shinobi. He recognized the 2 shinobi as Jiraiya of the Sannin and the other as Akumo Haddock. Looking at the others was a bunch of teenagers he didn't really care about right now. All he cared about right now was the 2 people in the middle of the training ground sparring. The first one was something that made him shocked a bit but shook it off. It was a teenager that had golden spiky hair with 2 large bangs coming down the sides of his face, and his eyes were that of azure blue. He had a vest on and blue shinobi pants and a blue long-sleeved shinobi shirt with a vest over it. He finished off the look with blue shinobi sandals and a kunai pouch on his left thigh. The other person though was his greatest concern, for who he was looking at was losing pretty badly in the spar. It was a woman that by all means defined perfection. She had the height of 5'8" with long silky maroon hair, her face was perfectly heart-shaped with the greatest shade of violet anyone would ever see in her eyes. She had a perfect slender petite body with a bust showing at least a small D cup. She was wearing the normal Konoha attire. As he watched her, he saw the dark marking upon the back of her neck which was invisible to many, but to him it was as clear as day. Thus it made him grit his teeth in anger, knowing what that kind of seal was, but he did see the damage it was in. It was halfway through breaking already. This made him smile since he knew that the only person to have put that seal on the woman was none other than Jiraiya, and what a lousy job he did. You've grown so beautiful, Kushina, and strong too, but that seal hinders all the power you had back then, and knowledge, and memories of me, as well. Ah. A female shout interrupted his musings. Looking down, his eyes flashed brightly when he saw the blonde man-teen doing hand seals toward a downed and exhausted form of Kushina. Recognizing the hand seals and looking to see Jiraiya letting it happen made him step into action. I don't want to do this, but on sensei's orders she must be held down and in pain if necessary, Jiraiya thought, watching what his student was about to do. He saw Sakumo about to jump in, only to give him a glare saying no. That's when he saw the speed black blur pop out of the forest right when Minato shouted out his no ham, lightning release. Thor's hammer, he said before a massive lightning-shaped hammer shot out of the sky and directly as Kushina. It wasn't lethal, but it would assuredly injure her greatly. Too bad, since the black blur Jiraiya suddenly appeared in front of Kushina, terrified form with his back facing her. When they all saw this they tried to stop the oncoming, but it would seem Minato put a tad too much chakra in that attack. Kushina herself watched this cloaked man appear in front of her about to take the hit that was meant for her. That was until she heard the man's voice. Don't worry, Kushina-chan, I won't let you get hurt anymore was the word she heard him speak. It confused her, but that's when she felt she knew this voice before. As the lighting hammer came at them she held her head in pain. Flashback. Come on, Kushina-chan, you're stronger than this, I know. You can do it, Kushina-chan, you're strong, I believe in you. You've gotten stronger, Kushi-chan, soon you'll catch up to me. I love you, Kushi-chan. Never forget, I'll always love you, Kushi-hime, never forget me. The same voice resounded this time, showing just who this person was. It was a male that looked almost exactly like Minato, only this person looked much more friendly than that Hokage-crazed Namikaze. His blue-flecked golden slit eyes stared upon her with love, something she hadn't felt before. That is until he spoke once more. Kushi-hime, do you remember the promise we made to each other when we were just kids? That's when she saw, to her shock, she saw her younger 8-year-old self appear in front of her. She saw her grin widely before speaking. Of course I do, we promised we would get married when we were older, and I always keep my promises, Dadabane. Her younger self shouted before seeing the man himself smile and opened up his arms, confused at the action she watched, surprised when her younger self ran and jumped into his arms, kissing his cheek. She for some reason felt a blush come upon her face when she took in the whole man's body. He looked so handsome, she could see his body was restrained by the clothing he wore, and his muscled and chiseled body was stretching the fabric of his clothing. That's when she felt someone looking at her, so looking up she to her shock saw her younger self and the blonde Adonis looking at her with amused eyes. It's time you awoke, Kushina, please awaken and remember, the blonde man started with her younger self taking over. But you truly are, and remember, the person we both loved all those years ago is by your side now. And with a final look from the two they both spoke in unison. Awaken, Kushina. Flashback end. The seal on the back of Kushina's neck glowed rapidly while cracking even more before it shattered. Kushina suddenly saw so many things, remembered the places she's been, who she truly was, who her father was, everything. The final memory was of her and Naruto kissing before she was separated from him by Tsunade. Within her mindscape, when the seal shattered, the once bloodlust Kyuubi was now blinking in confusion at the sudden rush of memories as well. When they finally passed, its giant red crimson eyes widened with realization. Then its giant nine-tailed form glowed brightly before shrinking down to a more humanoid figure. When the glow dimmed, it showed a beautiful woman that tied with Kushina herself. She had the body of a goddess, her perfect hergless figure would make any straight man or gay die of a nosebleed. Her D-cup was out in full view, barely hidden by her royal blood-red kimono, though it showed much of her cleavage. She had long silky smooth red hair, being a bit lighter than Kushina's. Her face was carved from perfection, and her eyes were that of a crimson red with a fox slit within. Smirking, showing her abnormally large fangs, the goddess-like woman spoke. I knew Naruto would come back, and from what I'm sensing from him, he's gotten a lot more powerful than he was 10 years ago. On the outside world, Kushina rapidly blinked her eyes, adjusting her head with the now revealed memories until she remembered the situation she was in. Looking up, her eyes widened at seeing just a foot away from the cloaked man who she knew was Naruto. Only to be cut off when the man spoke again. Don't worry, you might need to remember a bit more, but something as trivial as this can't even scratch me, he said, already knowing the seal on her neck was gone. She was silent as he raised his right hand palm outwards. Something weak would only give me a slight tingle. With that, to her shock and Kyuubi's surprise, he swung his hand. On the opposite side of the giant, Minato, Jiraiya, Tsukumo, and the others watched horrified at what was about to happen. "That guy needs to get out of there," Minato exclaimed, not wanting to have a civilian death on his hands due to an accident. "I agree, especially with the like that it could kill not only him, but Kushina as well," Tsukumo said. "Wait, something's not right," Jiraiya exclaimed with a narrowed-eyed look in his eyes. This got looks from them all, the teen with long dark raven hair and coal-black eyes wearing the same thing as Kushina, Uchiha Mikoto, and Kushina's best friend stated. "What do you mean?" she said, only for a sound for Jiraiya's eyes to go wide. She along with the others followed his gaze and saw what he was seeing. The giant lightning-shaped hammer was slowly sliced in half by the hand of the cloaked stranger. They watched as the man just literally swatted one of the most deadly ration known to all away like it was nothing. Many gawked at what they just saw, but the sudden explosion from the destruction blew up, making smoke blow up around the cloaked stranger and Kushina. As the smoke cleared up, it showed the cloaked man standing exactly where he was with Kushina, looking at his form with so many emotions, it was impossible to identify even one of them. Tears did swell up in her eyes for some reason to the confusion of the Konoha nin. "Then Naruto-kun?" She spoke hesitantly, wanting to know if the cloaked person before her was the same person she remembers from the sudden rush of memories that she made that promise to the one she was in love with all those years ago. Before Konoha separated them. None of the Konoha knew what she said except for one person. Jiraiya, and his eyes were as wide as they could possibly be, the small flicker of fear appearing in his eyes when he heard that man's name. All records and bingo books were destroyed with that man's name, so the next generation would never know of the one that scared the great Konohagakure so much. So it was with great fear that Jiraiya stared at the cloaked figure with a look of extreme concentration, rarely ever seen on the pervert's face before. Tsukumo saw this and got very tense of what was to come, since he too knew of Naruto and his legendary status and actions in the war dating back since he was but a child. That honestly scared him to his very soul. He's never met him but knew even he wouldn't win that fight, no matter how strong he was. You just can't beat someone that has beaten us single-handedly. Naruto heard Kushina, and a feeling of warmth filled his once cold, emotionless body. Over the last 10 years he has forever closed up his heart and bent toward getting stronger, always training and never stopping. To get stronger and gain the one he loved the most back, even if he reclaimed his title as the most feared being in all of the shinobi nations. So it was a quick surprise when Naruto's cloaked form turned to Kushina and kneeled before her. "I told you I'd come back for you, Kushihime. It just took me a bit longer than I thought it would," he said, but she didn't care. She just smiled happily as tears went down her face. She didn't care how long it took Naruto to come back for her. All she cared about was that he was here now and wouldn't be leaving her ever again. Though she did wonder what changes he's gone through over the last 10 years, no matter how much he changed, she knew it was Naruto from the same familiarity and power she knew when she was a child from back then was the same even now, if only much stronger and perfectly controlled than before. Though when she looked at his shadowed face she saw his eyes, they honestly sent a shiver down her spine seeing such eyes. She wasn't scared of them, if anything she thought they made the mental image she had of him from 10 years ago all the more handsome. "Naruto-kun, can I see your face? It's been so long since I've seen you. I want to see your face again, the face of the same man I fell in love with all those years ago," she said with Naruto gently taking her hand, rubbing circles with thumb gently. "My appearance, you wish to see it?" He got a nod from her, and with a simple flick of his hood, it fell completely off, showing the face of Uzumaki D. Naruto, aka the Kami no Desensum, god of disaster and war, and first ever Z-rank shinobi in history. Jiraiya's face morphed into complete horror, while his face quickly paled. It was like he was seeing a ghost from the past. The kid hadn't changed a single bit from 10 years ago. Indeed, Naruto's face was the exact same way as 10 years ago, along with everything else. Kushina though could see the disguise on him and frowned. Having her memories come back made her old fiery personality flash back, making her usual one Konoha nose pale in comparison. When she was about to speak, Naruto stopped her by holding his hand to her mouth. "Wait, Kushi-chan, first we need to deal with these bastards. Konoha deserves to pay for taking you away from me, and they shall pay," he said, his eyes shadowed by his hair. Kushina's violet eyes softened before flickering her eyes over her team and frowned. She always wondered why most of them had that look in their eyes when they talked or when they first met in the academy, but she had no doubt they were put up to become friends with her so she would feel welcomed into the village. Her eyes landed on the only one she trusted even now, and that was Mikoto Uchiha. Despite her being of Konoha, she was still the most loyal person she has ever got the chance to meet. She couldn't possibly let Naruto kill her. "Naru-kun, please don't hurt Mikoto, that's all I ask of you," she said, getting Naruto's attention. Looking down at the red head in his arms, he snapped his gaze at the Uchiha and made a mental note not to kill her. "But I will keep my eye on you." "Very well then, you have my word," he said, only for their moment to be ruined when they heard someone shout. You? What are you doing here? I thought we killed you. Jiraiya screamed in pure fear and outrage. Minato looked at his sensei in curiosity before asking. Sensei, what's wrong, who is he? And how does he know Kushina Baka? He said only to feel an unbearable pressure weighing upon him, making him gasp. Turning his head in that direction, he not only found the golden amber-slitted eyes of Naruto glaring at him, but also the violet ones of Kushina. Did you just call me a Baka Namikaze? Kushina said, spitting out the word Namikaze like it was poison. Minato gulped audibly. Don't fret Kushi-chan, he is of no worry, he's as weak and pathetic as Konoha's other shinobi, Naruto said, knowing he insulted Konoha right in front of its very own shinobi. He got the reaction he wanted when the teen called Minato growled at him. What did you say? Why insult Konoha? What have we ever done to you? Naruto just blinked before chuckling. Standing up, Kushina watched when Naruto's chuckle turned from humor to hollow. It sent chills down many of their spines when they heard it, especially when his eyes seemed to glow faintly when Konoha was mentioned and of what they've done to him. You wanna know what they did to me? Boy, you have no idea. He shouted at the teen, making him take a step back. Konoha has all but angered me since I was a shinobi. They've lied, cheated, and betrayed me and Kushina's clan for a century. He shouted louder this time. The Konohan in all looked shocked except for Jiraiya, since he had a grim look on his face. They've angered me greatly over the years, but to take Kushina away from me was the last straw, he said quietly while grasping his cloak. Which they all caught, as did Kushina. When they took her from me 10 years ago, they all but destroyed any hope of salvation and sealed their fate with me delivering their punishment. With that, Naruto pulled off his cloak and in a shout of Kai. A massive pressure crashed onto all of Konoha except for Kushina and Mikoto. As the smoke formed, they all saw a giant shadow before them, also pressure of some kind completely lessened to none. They all saw something akin to a handle sticking over his shoulder, making them think it was a weapon of some kind. When the smoke finally cleared up though, Kushina's face lit up like a Christmas tree, making the sun itself look deadly pale, while discreetly Mikoto's face had a small pink hue as well, with it growing each passing second. Within Kushina mindscape, she could hear her old friend Kyuubi's screams at seeing Naruto's true form. Ikami. He's a giant sexy Adonis. Kushi-chan, you'd better find a way for me to get out here so I can. The normally composed, now horny as hell Kyuubi was interrupted when Kushina's blushing face shouted mentally. Kayu-chan. I never knew you liked Naruto too. Well, we can have this conversation later. With Kyuubi cut mental connection, but there was already a big mental grin on Kushina's face, knowing her best and longest friend had feelings for her Naruto. She looked upon the newly and to her true delight the appearance of Naruto. She knew he had been hiding his true appearance, but she never knew he was hiding this. For in front of her and all of them was a man that by all standards was a giant, for he stood, at least from what they could tell, was 25 feet tall and muscular. Very muscular if the side of his muscles were the size of small boulders. His skin was a bit on the pale side, with it a bit darker than it was before, but still the same shade as Kushina's own porcelain skin. His 12-pack was fully shown out to all, as were his pecs, and you could just tell you could hit him with a sledgehammer and it would shatter upon impact. His face was angular yet chiseled to perfection, carved by the gods themselves. His large arms were practically the size and width of an average-sized human. Though the other changes Kushina noticed were that of his hair, it was now surprisingly enough golden with black highlights within. With the spiky still there, only a little more tamed. His hair was long, with it going past his neckline and somewhat over his eyes. Though his golden amber slitted eyes now held a much more powerful look in them, making his appearance all the more intimidating. That's when they saw what he was wearing. Due to his large size, Naruto had to take matters into his own hands, where for his feat he had over the years had to take to learning a few professions like blacksmithing and tailoring. For now he was wearing his own custom-made clothing, starting with his black combat boots with black steel plating over the giant boots. Next up was his black cargo pants with the same metal plating, only this time integrated into the pants, making them much more durable, but wouldn't hold back his speed. Next up was his chest, being completely shirtless, except for the large tattered golden coat that hung loosely over his shoulders with torn-off sleeves at the end. Upon the coat's back was the Uzumaki clan symbol in its full-out true glory, with the symbol for protector and guardian interlocking with the Uzumaki symbol. Lastly, on his right shoulder was a crimson-colored pauldron with a design of some kind of demon with curved horns. Its mouth was wide open, showing it was screaming in what seemed fear. That's when they saw the sword handle above the pauldron and wondered what was behind the man's back. Kushina and Kyuubi saw it, as clear as day though, and right now Kushina was having a hard time not ruling over the sight of what she was seeing. Since she had always been a Kenjutsu master at heart, with only her Fuinjutsu coming out first, the weapon she saw upon Naruto's back was absolutely breathtaking. By the gods above, Naruto got that weapon. Of all things, Kami is truly on his side. Ayu-chan, do you know what that weapon is? Yes, hell, most of the underworld and heaven know what that weapon is. It's told in legends, but that blade was wielded by a being that fought demons and angels way back. Whoa, what's the sword called? Its name is rarely spoken of since it brings nightmares to many demons and hatred from most of heaven. Its name is Geoseater. When the demoness said that, a chill of excitement shot down her spine of seeing the blade of legend upon her container's back. How he got such a weapon in his possession she would never know, but right now it only increased her arousal of Naruto even more. For the giant weapon upon Naruto's back was a giant Zanbato-looking weapon, except in a truly unique design. Its bladed side was curved with two short spiked ends coming out from the double-side blade. Its inner design was quite terrifying when you look at it with a careful eye. It was showing the screaming face of what looked like ghostly souls forever screaming and what looked like either torment, anguish, pain or all of the above. Its length was 20 feet and 5 feet in width. Finishing it off was that the sword itself was glowing faintly yellow. With the smoke finally clearing up, Naruto in his new and completely true appearance stepped to Kushina and kneeled on one knee. He ignored the looks he was getting from the Konoha nin, but did savor the incredible fear from Jiraiya and would love it when he started pulverizing the man into the ground. Kushi-chan's voice was much deeper than she remembered. Looking up, she saw the smiling face of Naruto, the one she loved with all her heart. It's time we left Konoha, he said with his hand held out, which she quickly grasped, and with a small leap from her hauled her up till she was standing perfectly on her shaky legs. Kushina looked at Naruto. Well, looked up is the better word for it. She could see she stood at his legs in height and it irritated her a bit on the inside. She felt so small. Naruto, what about all of Konoha? I can feel the shinobi converging here. What do we do? She asked him, only to get a grim smile from him. Let them comes, I said I would protect you, and I meant it. I've been away from my duty for the last 10 years, and I won't keep doing that. Konoha can try to take you back from me, but I'll destroy any and all that try. I promised I would go through hell, and it's 9 levels of torture, and back 100x times over just to get you, and I meant it. He said, finishing his sentence with such much emotion, it brought a happy tearful smile to her face. Thank you Naruto-kun, she repeatedly rubbed her eyes in tears. Naruto nodded with a smile before narrowing his eyes. Die. Jiraiya shouted, appearing over Naruto while doing hand seals. No, and with that a giant shadow appeared over Naruto, and Kushina looked up slightly at Naruto, and Kushina saw the body of the giant toad Gamabunta coming down on them. Its eyes filled with confusion at the sudden summoning. With only a second to spare, Naruto spoke. Kushi-chan grabbed my leg, he said, and she did so quickly, wondering what Naruto was gonna do. As the giant toad came down, Mikoto watched, being held back by Tsukumo and Tsume. Kushina. Mikoto yelled, as the toad was but an inch away from crushing her and Naruto. Then the impossible happened. Gamabunta's fall was stopped, and the toad knew something was wrong. Jiraiya in his desperate and fearful state also found something wrong. That's when they saw Gamabunta's body about 25 feet from the ground. But not going down any further. To summon this little toad you must be desperate to kill me, Jiraiya, but you should. I didn't take down physically for nothing. You know, a voice that struck fear into Jiraiya's heart with each passing word. Looking under Gamabunta was Naruto, and Kushina grasping his leg, looking up also with amazement in her eyes. Why was this? Well, it could be that Naruto's right hand was in the air holding Gamabunta's body in the air, like it was nothing, with a bored look on Naruto's face. It couldn't be that though. Right? Holy Kami, Tsukumo uttered, trying to wipe the disbelief in his eyes. He couldn't believe, but right in front of him was a man holding Gamabunta's sized body in the air. With only one hand. Mikoto was struck in amazement as well. She stared at the godly looking giant with awe. This man, who was very important to Kushina, was holding a toad of Gamabunta's size in the air like it was nothing. Her curiosity was getting stronger for him with each passing second. Gamabunta's heavier than I remembered anyway. Here, I think this is yours. Naruto said, and with a swing of his arm sent Gamabunta flying. And I do mean flying. The giant toad was sent right over the Konoha shinobi and into the forest, skidding back, destroying trees and the ground. That is until it hit the Konoha wall and poofed out of existence. Jiraiya fell to the ground in shock. He jumped off Gamabunta at the right time, but now he was standing right before the very man he feared greatly. His eyes glaring down on him, making him, he was suffocating under the monstrous wave of power weighing on him. It honestly felt like an ant compared to a lion. You're pathetic, Jiraiya, your fear is all over you. What a disappointment you are. Without waiting for a reply from the scared shitless Sennin, Naruto backhanded the man away, who slammed into the forest, taking many trees with him. This of course shocked many. Jiraiya Sennin was just backhanded and beaten so quickly. And this guy made it look as easy as breathing. Whoa, Naruto, that was so awesome. She shouted in childlike glee. I mean, it's not every day you see a shinobi like Jiraiya getting manhandled like that. Jiraiya is pathetic. He may be a good shinobi, but he relies too much on his summons than his own capabilities now then, he said, turning his head to the remaining Konoha shinobi. Kushina saw this and looked at Makoto with a calculating stare in her eyes. Searching for something until she spoke. Naru-kun, remember when I said to spare Makoto? Would you mind taking her with you? If there was any person I'd want to take away from this corrupted arrogant village, it's her. She said, shocking Makoto greatly, while Naruto just looked at Kushina for a minute. But she is of Konoha, can we trust her? He said, only to get a nod from her. Yes, if there is anyone I trusted with all my heart, it Makoto-chan, she said with a smile. Seeing this, Naruto closed his eyes and nodded, very well then, but the others, he said, made the others tense. Won't get the same treatment, and with that Naruto's gaze snapped at them, and in a blink of an eye, Tsukumo, along with Tsume and Jiraiya's students were passed out, similar to how Naruto dispatched the gate guards. Minato himself, being a self-proclaimed shinobi genius and strong-willed being, was lying back foaming at the mouth with his eyes rolled at the back of his head. Again pathetic, he spoke with distaste. After this he looked at Makoto with a piercing look in his eyes that made the female teen fidget. Kushina, go talk to her, ask why she's so hesitant with coming, but hurry, I sense many shinobi coming, and I would rather like to get out of here soon. He said, getting a nod from her. With that, Kushina ran to Makoto and start talking to her of why was so hesitant with leaving. As she did so, Naruto moved his gaze at Minato and walked over to the unconscious teen. He grabbed him by his neck and lifted him up with a deadly serious look in his eyes. This one, I can tell, has been hurting Kushina for some time now. He deserves punishment as well. With that, Naruto balled up his boulder-sized fist and let go of Minato, only for Naruto to swing his fist and nail the Namikaze in the stomach, sending him through the forest like a speeding missile, shattering trees along the way. That'll show him. Before he looked over shoulder and into the forest, sensing someone watching them. Then multiple chakra signatures appeared within the forest. 300, number 400, and the Sandaime himself. Perfect, he muttered with a sinister grin coming upon his face. Kushina saw this and wondered what meant by that, but the way he was grinning made her feel a little hot. That's the grin of a demon. Sure does, reminds me of you a bit when the first times we met, but on him makes him look virile, handsome, godly perhaps. More like a demonic sexy Adonis. Naruto, not knowing of the conversation about him, spoke. Kushi-chan, hurry up, we've got company. With that, multiple thuds of feet pounded away at the ground, showing the arrival of many Konoha shinobi, along with Orochimaru and Senju Tsunade, the other two sennin, and their sensei, and the self-proclaimed Kami no shinobi himself, Hiruzen Sarutobi Sandaime Hokage. That's when they all saw the damage at the grounds, but the source of their appearance was the giant before them. Many went deadly pale at the man. His appearance was fearsome in nature, and his eyes didn't help at all. It actually made a few that made contact with his eyes keel over before passing out from the ferocity in his eyes. Hiruzen was staring at the giant man with a look of extreme curiosity. It's not every day you see a man of his height, and plus the way the man's aura just expelled power told him that this man was different. That is until he heard his student Tsunade gasp, so looking at her, he saw how deathly pale she was, while Orochimaru himself, his star student, was showing disbelief with his eyes wide as they could be. It can be that he's supposed to be dead. He heard Tsunade utter this, which made him feel a little tense for some reason. Ah, they've all gathered. Good, I won't have to shunt each of you down, then Naruto said, making them all tense. He started walking toward them with a bloodthirsty look in his eyes, which made many shinobi piss themselves in fear. Who are you strangers? Hiruzen asked, clearly confused at who this man was, but to make his students fearful like they are, made him feel a little more tense than before. Naruto just looked at Hiruzen for a moment, making the cage freeze in his tracks. The golden amber slitted eyes made him feel something he has never felt before, a feeling of absolute power washed over him like a tsunami. Threatening to flatten and crush him like he was nothing but trash. Who am I? Boy Hiruzen, you are getting senile at your age. If you were to read the bingo books you would know me, but I was killed by your students 10 years ago. Do you remember now? He said, satisfaction gleaming in his eyes, seeing Hiruzen go deathly pale at what Naruto just said. No, it can't be, no, it's impossible. He denied it to be true. There was no way, absolutely no way it could be true. Yes, that's right, or let me spell it out for you. My name is Uzumaki D. Naruto, aka the Kami no Desensum, god of disaster and war and your worst nightmare. Finishing it off with a demonic shout. Naruto just announced it to everyone. That he was back and ready to bring disaster once more. You know it can't be, Hiruzen said, horrified at what he was hearing. That's right, fool, I'm back and ready to take Kushina-chan away from here the same way you took her from me 10 years ago. With that, Naruto took a step forward. Next thing anyone knew, Naruto was in front of Orochimaru with his fist already embedded into the snake man's stomach, the sound of crunching and shattering ribs rung around the whole area, along with Orochimaru's painful scream. Too slow to react, Naruto brought down his other fist upon Orochimaru's jaw, breaking it, as well as sending the pale man into the air. As the sannin was in the air, Naruto drew back his other fist, while using his right blocked Tsunade's chakra-enhanced punch, making a shockwave from behind him. He brought it down and rammed Orochimaru right into the ground, creating a massive crater. Taking their shock into account, Naruto spun around, delivering a bone-breaking kick to Tsunade, breaking her left leg and sending her into a couple of trees. Afterwards, he turns his head toward the oncoming group of Konoha shinobi and glares. Right then, a massive pulse shot from him, with it hitting the group of shinobi, making them pass out from the sudden mental attack. Then, without warning, he sent his right foot into the ground, creating a shockwave before a small upheaval of earth shot up, hitting many other shinobi that were about to send their own from afar. Hiruzen watched in just a few minutes. This man, no monster, took out his students and shinobi like it was second nature. It actually scared him a bit, but he had to show no fear in adversity. Even if his enemy was practically a monster among humans and god among shinobi. Something he truly was questioning about himself at watching such a display. With Kushina and Mikoto. "Whoa, that guy is strong," said Mikoto, wide-eyed at what she just saw. This guy just took down 3 sannin, a man that is stronger than all of the sannin combined, and now hundreds of shinobi like it was child's play. Her curiosity of him rose up to monumental heights of him, and her amazement of what he has done so far showed in her eyes. "Trust me, I was just like that when I saw him fight Tusan back when I was just a kid. Naruto is truly very powerful, and I want to be there with him step by step throughout both our lives," Kushina said with a small giggle, seeing her friend's gaping face. "Wow, you truly love him, don't you? I still can't believe Konoha placed that kind of seal on you," she said, remembering what Kushina told her and about the seal that locked away her true memories. It disgusted her that Konoha would do something so dirty just so they could get Kushina. Yes, she knew of Kushina's clan, the Uzumakis. She was also recently told about her being of the Kyuubi no Kitsune. But to Kushina's surprise, Mikoto still saw her as a friend, something that made her feel very relieved. Mikoto heard Kushina sigh contently as her violet eyes gazed upon the giant of a man she loved. "Yeah, I love him as much as he loves me. You know, the first time we ever met was when I was just 2 years old. From that day on, I never left him, always cling to him like he was my own personal teddy bear. But now he truly does look like my big stuffed teddy bear," she said with a childlike grin. Mikoto smiled while rolling her eyes. The Kushina was still in there, but much calmer than the energy ball she used to know was still there. "But if I know Naruto, and if what you told me is true about your clan, he'll take you away from here, even if he has to destroy and kill everything in his way. He may not trust you right now since you're from Konoha, but in time he will. So will you come along with us?" she asked, wanting to know what Mikoto's answer was. Uchiha closed her eyes in thought. The words of Kushina sounded so far-fetched, thinking that this man was strong enough to face all of Konoha by himself and would go through armies to do what he wanted to do. At first she was disbelieving it, but after hearing what he proclaimed himself to be, him throwing a summon of Gamabunta's size with just a hand, made her quickly believe every word. "Very well then, if he can help me then I'll follow him without a second of hesitation," she stated with a determined look in her cold black eyes. Kushina's face broke out into a megawatt smile. For some reason she really wanted Mikoto to come with her and Naruto, and she just got her wish. "Woohoo!" she shouted, hugging Mikoto tightly. The black-haired teen was trying to console her hyper-excited friend, even though she too had a smile on her face, knowing she was in good hands. But Naruto and Hiruzen. Naruto heard Kushina's exclamation and softly chuckled. It would seem that Mikoto would be coming with them. That's when he turned his gaze on his last obstacle, his truly most hated enemy of all. The man that took Kushina away from him all 10 years ago, but also betrayed the Uzumaki clan just like his sensei before him. The thought of just looking at this man any longer made him want to rip out the man's spinal cord and snap his neck with it. "No, I'm gonna make Hiruzen feel pain, true pain, no use making it quick." Hiruzen suddenly felt a cold chill go down his spine when Naruto looked at him with those predatory eyes of his. "Sarutobi Hiruzen, you're the last one. Your village has more shinobi than this, I know, but I'll just kill them as well. Nothing will stop them from leaving here with Kushina. Not you, not your daimyo, and most certainly not your pathetic excuse of shinobi," he said, angering Hiruzen with each jab at his village. "You may be strong, but that doesn't mean I can't take you down. This may be our first meeting, but I highly doubt you have the power those rumors claim you to have," he said, bluffing since he knew every single word that was said about him was true. But he was trying anything to lower Naruto's guard just a bit. Narrowing his eyes, Naruto spoke, "Like I give a damn, I don't care what people say about me, I am what I am." Though I am a human that has surpassed all limits of what a mortal has and done the impossible over and over again during the years. Like my victory with the Kyuubi for example, that battle was something I wanted to do to get stronger. I did everything I had. I went to the extreme and still do. Making Hiruzen confused. Why go so far to get stronger? You're already portrayed as something akin to a god or a deity, why go so far? Was the question he asked. It was always on his mind when he first heard about the man in front of him. The way he fought and gained power. The way he always got stronger than he was before, how he would do the impossible and come out on top of the most outnumbered battles in history. Looking over at Kushina, Naruto spoke, I fight for the reason I live. My purpose you could say is to get stronger and protect the ones important to me, and right now Kushina Uzumaki is my most precious person in the whole damn world. You Sarutobi made a mistake when you took her from me. Sarutobi realizing what Naruto meant mentally smirked. So Kushina is his weakness. Then would you really risk her life? He said thinking he had Naruto cornered. Only to never know the mistake he just made. Naruto's eyes glowed murderously as his body started to shimmer strangely as the ground cracked around him and the trees themselves flowed by the sudden wind surrounding Naruto. The sky itself was swirling above him, churning it into a giant black cloud of lightning and wind. You dare threaten her life, Hiruzen, you're truly a fool. But that a slight twitch from Naruto sent Sarutobi charging right at him and the cages forgot his shinobi armor. Doing a couple of hand seals, Hiruzen stated. Pain. Karakenden. Fire release. Fire dragon flame missile, a stream of fire shot out of Sarutobi's mouth, shaping into a giant roaring dragon of blazing hot flames. It sped across the field, burning the grass and making the trees themselves combust into flames from the heat, but as the dragon came toward Naruto, the said Uzumaki just stared into the oncoming dragon's yellow eyes without a shred of fear. One word escaped Naruto's mouth that Hiruzen heard perfectly. Pathetic. But the swipe of his hand, the dragon was split horizontally, showing the bored face of Naruto and his smoking right hand. Hiruzen's eyes went wide in disbelief. That was his strongest and was sure it would at least injure him. A feeling of desperation was starting to fill in his stomach, twisting and turning in a knot of the growing fear he was having of this giant before him. Like that is pathetic. At the age of 9 I was already advancing those kinds of techniques into something better and more advanced. The demonic voice of his enemy rang around the area, only increasing his fear even more. Jumping back, Hiruzen made a hand seal. Page Bushin no Jutsu. But that a duplicate of him popped beside him, reaching into their pouches they slung their arms outward, making multiple shuriken and kunai fly toward Naruto's giant body. Doing hand seals at the same speed they both shouted. Page Shuriken no Jutsu Kage Kunai no, making the shuriken and kunai multiply from 10 each to 100, each all flying directly toward Naruto, casting a dark shadow over him. As the hail of weaponry was coming at him he chuckled. Using such tactics again, pathetic. Kushina and Makoto watched as the hail of weaponry fell upon him in horror. Kushina remembers many times that weapons had a hard time cutting into Naruto after all his brutal training, but the quantity of weapons being hurled at him could seriously hurt him. Naruto-kun moves out of the way. She yelled. Naruto heard her but just smiled and spoke. Nah, just watch Kushi-chan, I didn't nothing for the last 10 years. With it the sound of shuriken and kunai met. Multiple thuds. They all looked in shock as every single shuriken and kunai that hit Naruto from where it was supposed to stab into him or scratch him just bounced off him, leaving nothing there, no scratch, no stab, no blood, no nothing. It was like Naruto was bathed in a shower only in razor-sharp metal. Hiruzen's feeling of despair only grew seeing Naruto not getting damaged at all from the weapons, and his fear only rose when Naruto's eyes came upon him. Knocking out the cage, he did a few more hand seals before slamming his hands on the ground. Try fighting me with this. Fuchius no Jutsu. Ankm. Enma. Monkey King. Enma, without a puff of smoke erupted from Sarutobi's hand, revealing a human-sized monkey with white spiky hair and beard. This made Naruto grin, finally he could fight Sarutobi to his fullest and then break him at his fullest at the same time. Oh, it's gonna feel so good when all the hope Sarutobi has of winning this little fight is crushed beneath my feet. Enma blinked, his eyes slowly adjusting from the quick summon, only to see his summoner in a state he's never seen before. It was fear, but why? Looking at what was in front of his summoner he saw exactly why. Hiruzen, please tell me you didn't just summon me to fight this man, exclaimed the deadly calm summon. He already knew who this man was, hell the whole summon realm knew, he who has shaken the very realm itself by beating of Kyuubi's level. That was spread throughout not only the elemental nations, but also the summoning realm. Within itself, this unintentionally got respect from many boss summons for Naruto, since it has never been recorded in history that a mortal of all things defeated a Bijuu with only his physical prowess and Taijutsu only. I'm sorry Emma, but I know the only way to fight him is with you by my side. Because if I don't I'll most likely be killed, he begrudgingly admitted. Enma just grunted, Sarutobi, I don't know if I should just leave right now. This man before us is highly respected not only in your realm, but the summon realm, as well, since his feats have reached even us. But with you being my only clan summoner, I'll have to help you, which gained a grim smile from the old cage. Thank you, now let's begin. He said with Enma jumping above Sarutobi doing his own hand seals before stating. Penge. Kong Nioi. Transformation adamantine staff, and in a poof of smoke Enma transformed into a 6-foot-long staff with black being its main color, with both ends being a dark yellow. When it dropped, Hiruzen caught it before twirling it around before setting into a stance, his eyes glaring at the face of the enemy he admiringly wronged, but was for the better of Konoha. I'm a weapon. You wish to fight me with a weapon like that? Very well then, I'll give you the honor of fighting with Chayasiator, he said, slowly inching his right handle to the giant leathered strapped handle of what Sarutobi notices now a weapon of some kind. But Kushina and Mikoto, they watched in awe as Naruto kept Hiruzen the Kami no Shinobi in a corner without even moving. The big bright grin on Kushina's face could make even the sun itself turn green with envy. How Mikoto was smiling, as well as she watched the person that was possibly gonna help her leave her cursed clan beat Konoha's cage around like a rag doll and embarrass him like a child. Narukun's gonna draw it. I wanna see. Kyuubi shouted repeatedly like a child wanting its favorite toy. Ayu-chan, you have no idea how cute you just sounded when you said that mentally, said a grinning Kushina. Shut up, the flustered Kyuubi said, as she really couldn't control herself when Naruto admitted that he was gonna draw his weapon. It was like an urge for her to just see him use the weapon that made her want him to quickly draw it out and carve up the old man like a pumpkin. When Naruto's hand grasped the leathered handle, a sudden pulse of power reverberated from his back, cracking the ground beneath him and making many trees break upon impact from the sudden pulse. Hiruzen Enma met Chayasiator, he said, drawing his massive Zanbato demonic weapon from his back. And in that slow ever draw, Hiruzen appeared below Naruto in mid-swing, his staff an inch away from hitting Naruto's stomach. That's when the giant demonic sword blocked the staff, making it tremble. It was like he slung a sledgehammer at a steel door. But Kami Hiruzen, be careful, my head hurts. Enma shouted from within the staff while Sarutobi just nodded. No time to talk to Sarutobi when in the middle of a fight a voice from behind him spinning around, he slammed his staff at Naruto, only to hit his sword once more, making an echo of clanging steel echo around the area. With that they both disappeared in the high-speed Kenjutsu battle. Soon metal versus metal rang from all over the forest of Konoha, alerting many shinobi that felt the chakra signatures being all focused in one spot with them getting ready. Trees were broken from the shockwaves of the two enemies meeting with their weapons each time. That is until a scream of pain erupted from the forest before Hiruzen's body shot out of the forest and into the ground, bleeding severely from numerous injuries on his part, his staff still at his side, but cracks showing damaged Enma was as well. Out came Naruto Chayasiator over his shoulder with a deadly look in his eyes, the sudden spark of playfulness gone. He wanted to leave Konoha, and he wanted to leave now. Hiruzen, I've had enough games, we end this now. And with speed Hiruzen couldn't even detect Naruto appeared in front of him, his giant fist smashing into his face, making a dislocated jaw and breaking his teeth. With that though, Hiruzen's body shot off toward Konoha, smashing into trees on the way, as well as injuring his body even more. But that out of the way for now, Naruto turned toward Kushina and Mikoto, the latter looking at him in complete awe and amazement in her eyes. He saw this, but brushed it off for now and walked up to them for a moment. Kushi-chan, I know you're strong, don't get me wrong, I know you are, but right now you are at your weakest, so I want you to apply this to your seal holding Kyuubi. It's the great I've created so far, and my greatest work. It will protect you, and Miss Mikoto here as well. He said, handing over a small paper with an intricate yet complex design of a seal, similar to the Uzumaki Fuinjutsu upon Kushina's navel. Looking at it with a calculating eye, she was talented and praised for by her father and clan. She analyzed it being some kind of reversal seal of some kind. It is the same array seal upon her stomach holding Kyuubi, but much opposite in design, with a few array lines integrated differently than the others. Naru-kun, what does this seal do? I have no idea, she said, pouting cutely since she prided herself greatly on her, but this one just seemed so complicated. Chuckling a bit, Naruto turned toward Konoha's direction and spoke. Just apply that to your seal and you'll know soon enough to enjoy it, he said with a big ass grin on his face. One he has never done for the last 10 years. With that, Naruto charged forward through the forest, shattering trees that came into contact with his body. He knew he was gonna be charging right into the hornet's nest, but he didn't care. He wasn't doing this for not only Kushina, but also his clansmen, the ones that were betrayed that night. He's gonna make Konoha feel true pain. Kushina blinked before pouting, damn it, Naru-kun is so confusing sometimes. She shouted while Mikoto just giggled at how childish her friend was being. Well, aren't you gonna use it? she said, making the redeed stop before rubbing her head sheepishly. Right, sorry, my bad. Kinda forgot that she channeled chakra to the seal before placing it on her own seal holding Kyuubi. Within her mindscape, Kyuubi saw the seal Naruto gave her and was still trying to figure out what the seal's job was. It was so much more confusing than any she's ever seen before, much more than her first containers were Uzumaki Mitos, and her skills were godly at least. What does the seal do, I wonder? That's when Kushina applied it onto her seal before a bright light erupted from the outside world, while on the inside Kyuubi felt a sudden tug. When she looked at the mindscape she saw it was normal, but was gradually disappearing. When she snapped her gaze at the Uzumaki seal, she was flabbergasted at seeing instead of being the normal lock and key type of seal it was now doing the opposite and was slowly opening the giant gates within Kushina's mind. Realization came to Kyuubi's eyes and she smirked. Oh Naruto-kun, you're good. Outside. When the sudden bright light erupted from Kushina, Mikoto had to close her eyes unless she wanted damage to her eyes. The light covered a good portion of the forest. It suddenly started to dim, and when it was completely gone, Mikoto opened her eyes to see something quite shocking. Before her was a woman that by all rights could pass as a goddess and also the twin sister of Kushina. That's when she noticed the differences with the woman. She noticed the feral whisker marks on her face, her crimson fox-slitted eyes, which in some cases was scary but nowhere near as fearful as the ones Naruto had. That's when she saw the two key appendages that made her know who it was, for it was two fluffy orange fox ears and 9 flowing orange fox tails on her backside that showed who she truly was. The Kyuubi no Kitsune was out, and right now she looked nothing like the legends proclaimed her to be. For she was right in front of Mikoto holding Kushina in a gentle hug with her 9 tails wrapped around her in a protective manner. She saw that Kushina was just as shocked as she was. They thought many things would happen when she applied the seal, but nothing like this. Kyu-chan. Kushina uttered her wide violet eyes and stared shocked at her friend she's known as long as Naruto. The one she never thought in her wildest dreams would be out here physically with her and never able to leave the seal on her stomach, which was shockingly enough gone. Hello Kushina-chan, and my name isn't technically Kyuubi, that's just a title. It's actually Akemi Kitsune no Akemi. The newly revealed Akemi chuckled with a sheepish look on her face. Kushina just blinked, once, twice, 3 times. Oh, I so owe Naruto-kun for doing this, by the way, Akemi-chan, she said, still getting used to the name. Looking her way, Akemi asked. That's when a mischievous grin crawled up Kushina's face. Mind telling me about that little outburst from before when Naruto showed his true self? Or the fact you've been calling him kun in such a suggestive manner? She said with a teasing manner at the end of her tone. Akemi just blushed knowing she was trapped, and this time she couldn't cut the conversation via mental link. Damn it. Well. But Naruto. The giant Uzumaki was just a few feet away from Konoha. Even now he could sense its many shinobi, all converging on the spot where Sarutobi supposedly landed. He idly wondered if the cage survived the attack, since he did put some good force into that punch. Shrugging his shoulders, Naruto looked over his shoulder to see a bright light where Kushina and Mikoto were. That's when a small smile came upon his face. Hope you like my gift to you, Kushina, as well as you, Kyuubi. You deserve to be free from such imprisonment after everything you've done for both of us. With that, Naruto jumped once more before landing on a branch overlooking Konoha. Looking over the city, one might think it was peaceful, but Naruto knew better. It was in a state of chaos, the disorder and disaster of seeing their cage, their leader, sent through many buildings and into the streets bloody and broken. He could see where Sarutobi went via the buildings he crashed through, going through a straight line and into the civilian streets. Perfect, he grinned, seeing many shinobi and civilians alike all at that one spot. With that, he disappeared, leaving nothing but a gust of wind in his wake. Naruto was about to put his title to test and leave Konoha in a state of disaster and an open war with Konoha shinobi. Streets of Konoha. Civilians and shinobi alike were all shocked or plain out terrified at what they were seeing. There was a massive crowd of the two surrounding the body of their Hokage, the fearsome leader that fought in all 3 wars, the man that was named the Kami no Shinobi. Was nothing but a bloody yet broken man, bloody leaking from his body, his jaw totally shattered, but miraculously still there and healable. His staff was beside him, grasped in his hand. They all could see the man was trying to get up only to fall back down to his knee. The shinobi all wondered though what was going on and what did this to their Hokage. Well, they got their answer when Hirazen's eyes widened in complete fear. Then a second later, Naruto's giant form appeared in front of Hirazen's body, scaring the hell out of them. All his gigantic towering muscled form made many pale in fear. His giant demonic Zanbato only added to his fearful image. Hirazen, how pathetic you look, and in front of all these people, what a shame, Naruto said, ignoring the rageful looks from the Konoha shinobi. Or surprisingly enough, lustful looks from a few women in the massive crowd. Hacking up blood, Hiruzen looked upon the man that he had done this to him, taking a quick glance at his staff he spoke. Naruto, to have actually come here within Konoha, I don't know whether or not you're brave or stupid, he said, knowing when he said the name Naruto the shinobi quickly tensed, knowing the very name made his shinobi either ready for a fight or the weaker-willed ones quit the shinobi life forever. What does that matter? I don't care what I have to go through, I do have Kushina back, but this isn't just for her, this is for your and your sensei's betrayal to the Uzumaki clan. I'm here to rid that symbol upon your shinobi's backs, they don't deserve to wear it, since they have betrayed us from the very beginning. He said, shocking them all, just not Hiruzen, who had a grim look in his eyes. But it was for the better of Konoha. He shouted in protest. Wrong thing to say. What did you just say? Naruto said with a dangerous look in his eyes. Hiruzen tensed as Naruto took a step forward when his foot touched the ground though. Hiruzen suddenly jumped back, ignoring his injuries, and slammed his staff into the ground. Everything me and the past Hokages have done was for Konoha's protection, even if we sacrificed many it still brought peace to us, and when Naruto's eyes couldn't get any more dangerous they just did. You've signed your death warrant, Sarutobi. No, it is your death that happens today, and I will make sure that I succeed where my students failed. Out of the staff came two monkey hands, along with the head of Enma, who shouted. I am sorry Naruto Dono, but this is my summoner's will. Ninpokan Ramiki. Adamantine prison wall, with multiple clones of the staff closed in around Naruto, encasing him inside a prison-like wall. Naruto himself looked pretty bored though with the whole thing. Hiruzen grinned knowing he had Naruto trapped, nothing could break that prison, not even his student Tsunade, and her strongest attacks couldn't leave even a crack. Enma did look ashamed that he had to imprison the most highly respected person in the whole summon realm. Dragging himself to the prison wall, Hiruzen spoke while leaning against his staff for support. You're done Naruto, that prison you're in is completely unbreakable, you've lost, he said, thinking he won and had officially beaten the terror of Kumo-Iwa and Konoha. He, who had bested the most nightmarishly strong being in all of the elemental nations. How wrong he was at the moment. I will admit this is quite the prison, no normal human could break this, no matter how strong they are, he mused out loud. So you're admitting your defeat then? Hiruzen asked, perplexed at how Naruto was acting. No, I said no normal human could break this, you see you've forgotten you little detail, Sarutobi, he said, making Hiruzen tense. What do you mean? Wanting to know why the man was so calm with the situation he was in. Naruto just held up his right hand, balling it up into a fist while speaking. Hiruzen, I was able to beat single-handedly, and not just any of the eight-tailed Hichibi itself. Remember how I did exactly? He said, humor coming out of his voice. Hiruzen's eyes widened greatly, remembering exactly how he did such a feat. That's right, I did it with my strength alone. He said, and before anyone could react, Naruto's fist nailed right into the prison wall, making it creak in protest before giving in and breaking apart. Naruto then stepped out of the self-made hole and spoke. Now I believe I needed to finish you, he said, walking toward Hiruzen, who at the moment was on the ground, unable to get up due to his injuries, and that after that one hit Enma was poofed out due to the pain transferring to the summon. Without the staff, as support he was nothing more than a man getting on in age. Looking upon Naruto's form, his eyes glaring down at him, made him truly see what kind of being he angered. He saw it completely. It was a being that swatted armies, and Fraudy sees the rumors and legends of the man in front of him all true now. Now die, he said, about to draw his sword and stab the man through. Stop right there. Was the shout of one Konoha shinobi, not gonna let this go on. Yeah, you think we're just gonna let you kill our cage? If you haven't noticed, Mr. Legend, but you're surrounded on all sides. One arrogant looking shinobi shouted. Naruto curled an eyebrow and looked all around him to see all the civilians gone, probably taken to the Hokage monument for safety. He could only see a practically sea of Konoha shinobi all around him. Then the possibilities came and he grinned. Oh, so you want to stop me? Then by all means come and try. And with a massive pulse from him, 3/4 seconds of that massive force was now passed out in the same manner as the ones before them that was hit by the pulse. The shinobi that shouted at him looked horrified now. What was that? Stuttered a shinobi. Hiruzen, I think it's time you learn not to anger those that have power to kill you. Let me show you what true pain is, to see the things you love the most destroyed by your very eyes. Watch as your home is destroyed, just like I watched my and Kushina home destroyed on that night when you didn't come help us. Naruto shouted, and Hiruzen's eyes completely bugged knowing what the man was about to do. No. He shouted only to fall on deaf ears, and Naruto brought his left fist up, showing a blue sphere circled around it, encasing his fist completely. Watch Hiruzen, with just this fist alone I will level Konohagakure to the ground. And with that Naruto brought his fist down, slamming into the ground. Soon enough Konoha started to shake uncontrollably. Buildings all around started to crumble or sink. The land itself shifted, destroying the Konoha walls itself, as well as the Hokage tower itself, cracking and breaking apart from the sudden shift in the earth from which it stood upon. But the sudden snap, Naruto brought his fist up again, only this time to swing it around in the direction of the gobsmacked shinobi. He punched the air, creating a shockwave, blasting them all away and shattering the buildings in its path. Explosions racked Konoha all around, burning it as the sky itself turned black from the smoke and ash rose into the air. Hiruzen watched all of this, as this one man did all of this with just his fist alone. He truly saw what he had angered. Everything that had led up to this moment, all of his careful planning, had left his village in total chaos. Just like the Uzumaki clan was left at the hands of Iwa, Kumo, and Suna. With Kushina, Akemi, and Mikoto. As soon as Naruto started destroying Konoha, all three of them were feeling the tremors and shockwaves coming from there. They were greatly curious, so Akemi had taken Kushina and Mikoto and gotten close enough to see what was going on. So when they did exactly see what was happening, they were completely awed at the spectacle. Konoha was a total disaster. It was like Mother Nature was scorned and sent her anger toward Konoha tenfold. "Ami, now I definitely want to go with you," Kushina-chan, Mikoto said, eyeing the whole village she once served, burning and falling apart. "Why is that?" she asked. "'Cause I know with the way this Naruto is, the adventures he would go on would be great, and living a life of peace is a bit dull for me, that is if you let me." She asked only for Akemi to speak. "I don't think Naruto-kun would have a problem, but he will still keep an eye on you for a while. You'll just have to gain his trust along the way," making Mikoto nod. "No problem with that," she said, looking over the utterly destroyed Konoha. "The destruction of this village, thank you Kami for giving us not only a giant sexy Adonis but one that has the same hatred for Konoha as I and Kushi-chan." Akemi spoke with her hand held together in a prayer. Kushina just shook her head at the display while remembering the talk she had with Akemi, and she wasn't all that shocked to hear what Akemi told her. It would seem over the years she knew Naruto, Akemi had also developed feelings for him which evolved into love. And now 10 years later she still had those feelings just as she did going on strong. Strangely enough though, she didn't have a problem with sharing Naruto if it came down to it, only that it was between her and Akemi, but there was still the fact of Mikoto, and she does remember her eye his form when she thought no one was looking. "I think it's time we got down there and explained our next move with the Uchiha clan, if what you said was true, Mikoto-chan. Naruto won't leave without paying them a visit as well," Kushina said, making Mikoto frown. "I don't care what happens to them. All of them are corrupt in their arrogance. Fugaku's ideals have changed the once proud clan I loved as a child into a shadow of its former self. I would actually like to see Naruto destroy them," she said darkly with anger in her eyes. Kushina and Akemi both nodded, knowing why she hated her own clan so much. They were both told why, and it even made Akemi sick to her stomach. The Uchiha clan elders, along with the majority of the clan itself, had become so arrogant their beliefs had turned into believing they were stronger than Kami herself. Thinking they were pure royalty and should be treated as such, Mikoto had been the only one to shout back, only to have the entire clan on her back. Fugaku had gone to the council and made the decision of making her a slave that answered his every whim. Kushina had at that point released her anger by punching a tree, making it shockingly shatter to pieces. Placing a hand on her shoulder, Kushina spoke, "Don't worry, like I said, if there's one thing Naruto hates more than anything, it's what your clan is and treating women the way they see them. They'll get there soon, I promise." Mikoto just smiled gratefully while hugging her back as a tear fell from her eye. "It's time, let's go," Akemi stated, and with that Kushina grabbed Mikoto and latched onto Akemi's body, then in a blink of an eye they disappeared. With Naruto watching in satisfaction at his work, Naruto turned toward the deathly silent Sarutobi, who was looking at his village. "I would have just kept doing this and leveled the monument Hiruzen, but I will be a true monster, for there are children up there that can change Konoha. I'm giving Konoha another chance for the next generation to actually change Konoha for the better. Remember what happened this day, Hiruzen, for if you do and still keep up with the deceits and lies, I will come back, and next time I will not leave anyone alive, all will be slaughtered, understand me?" Demonically at the end was his tone that reverberated around the destroyed area that is the burning Konoha village. Hiruzen just turned his head to look at Naruto. He had heard every single word he spoke, and in the deepest reaches of his soul, he was grateful. Grateful that the man before him was giving them one more chance. But seeing the giant man with the fires and destruction of his village looming over him showing his deed, the golden amber slitted eyes from which glowed made him actually see an apparition over Naruto. It looked so demonic in appearance it made him grip his heart and soul tightly as he could, lest he has them ripped from his body by just seeing this apparition. His fear for the man before him was so high, he was seeing things. "Right? I understand that Hiruzen passed out from everything that's happened and to his injuries." Nodding with this, Naruto turned away and waited. They should be here any moment now. And a second later Akemi appeared with Kushina and Mikoto in her arms. Seeing the sudden appearance, Naruto looked at them until his gaze landed on Akemi. "Hello Kyuubi, nice to see you," he said, not really caring about the destruction around him. Akemi was in the same manner as well. Hell, she savored in the chaos and death around her. Made her feel so at peace. Hey, she was a demon that loved chaos. "Do you, as well as Naruto-kun, my name is Kyuubi." "That's just a title, it's actually Akemi," she said while Naruto just queried an eyebrow before nodding. "Akemi, huh? Nice name. Anyway Kushina, did you find out why she was so hesitant to come with us?" he said, pointing at Mikoto. Kushina just nodded and explained. "Well, it all started with her clan. I see that your clan has been like this for years now, have been corrupted beyond any kind of help, and are in the belief that they are stronger than Kami herself. Not to mention you've been marked as their slave and were to be used as a breeding stock for being the strongest female out of the whole clan itself." Naruto spoke, summarizing everything he had been told. It only had been an hour since Konoha was leveled, and now the party of 4 were on the trail to the Uchiha clan compound. He had been told of everything the Uchiha had been plotting, most of which he didn't care about, but the part of marking Mikoto as a slave and was to be used as a breeding stock just irked him to no end. True, he didn't know Mikoto well and was suspicious of her, very much so. But if there was one thing he hated above all else, it was women used as objects and personal fuck toys. He'd seen enough of that doing missions for the clan and his personal travels. Bandits' camps, villages filled with poverty, and public brothels. All of which he'd seen to his disgust the women used in such ways. Those places were wiped off the map the same day. He'd freed any and all women from their treatment, as well as killing those that put them into such a thing. Yeah, what's worse is that the elders of the clan that live by the old ways have been planning to use a seal on me, since I'm the only one that's fought against these rights. The seal would make me nothing more than a mindless drone that would follow their bidding without a single second of hesitation. Just thinking about them putting that on me." Mikoto spoke before she started to tremble from a mixture of disgust and fear. Kushina, seeing this, wrapped her friend in a hug which the teen welcomed, crying into her shoulder. Kushina patted her back gently while looking toward Naruto with a pleading look in her eyes that was something he couldn't fight. He'd wiped villages off the map, destroyed armies, fought and beaten Biju. But Kushina's pleading violet eyes were the one thing he just couldn't beat. Akemi saw her former container looking at Naruto with a pleading look and saw how much Naruto was losing under her gaze. It was quite amusing really to see someone of such power and control be beaten by just a gaze. Sighing, he spoke. "Very well, I will deal with the clan, but after which we must leave, alright." He didn't like helping a former Konohan in, but if Kushina trusted her enough then he'd do it. Besides, he has been itching to give those Uchiha an ass kicking anyway. He missed the victory sign Kushina gave both Akemi or Mikoto, but did hear the slightly giggling of the 3. Quirking an eyebrow, he turned only to see them all blinking innocently at him. Shaking his head, he turned back around, not seeing the big ass grin on Kushina's face, the vulpine one on Akemi's, or the small smile on Mikoto's. As they ran through the forests heading for the Uchiha compound, Akemi looked upon Naruto's giant form and gained a curious look in her eyes. "Ah no, Naruto-kun." The man just gave her a glance. "Yes, Akemi." The just sped up beside him and spoke. "I don't get something, it's been 10 years, and I remember you being very tall even at your age, but how did you become this tall? Or the matter of how you're still able to move at such speeds like you are." This got both Kushina and Mikoto's attention as well, since it didn't cross their minds till Akemi mentioned it. Naruto sighed. "Honestly, I don't know, but I think it's from my father's side of the family. Everything I am right now makes me feel like it was from my father's side, and I'm guessing he was a giant or some kind of half-breed to a giant. All I know is that this is my full height and has been like this for the last 2 or 3 years. I hid in a henge so I wouldn't be alerted to nearby villages like I were Konoha." Akemi nodded with this until she continued. "I see." She is still curious as to why he, a human, was this tall. She'd seen giants before, some ranging from 50 feet tall to shockingly enough 500 feet tall. "I'm just glad I have a way to shift this form into a more normal one." That made Kushina blink before looking at him with a curious gaze. "Shift? What do you mean?" He stopped before looking at Kushina. He reached out with his senses and didn't sense anyone nearby, so he spoke. "Well, I have 2 forms basically. One is the form you see before you, which I just use when I go into battle, but for public areas I use my normal form. I can shift in between these forms at will, but it's such an annoyance." She just nodded at this. "Now let's go with it." They sped toward to the Uchiha clan, knowing tonight would be one to be remembered for years to come. Uchiha compound main gate. Arriving at the gate while dispatching the guards or snapping their necks in Naruto's case. The group arrived upon the Uchiha crested gates, Mikoto standing between Kushina and Akemi. Her eyes were practically glaring at the gates in clear disgust and hatred. Naruto took a step forward at the gate and placed his hand upon it. "Now I'm gonna come out with it and say, I won't be showing a single shred of mercy." Whether they be woman, man or child, none shall survive this night. This is my warning to you, Uchiha Mikoto, tonight will be the last time you ever see the clan again." Mikoto closed her eyes before letting out a sigh. "I know, and I don't care about this clan. This practical hell needs to be destroyed and wiped off the face of the world tonight. The clan needs to kill all of them." Naruto looked into her eyes and saw not a shred of hesitation. He nodded. "Very well then, bear witness to him." Bares his fist before swinging it upon the gate. It creaked upon protest of his massive titan-like strength before it shot off like a rocket, crushing houses and the logged walls. His fist outstretched while his eyes glared from the shadows of his bangs. The end of this pathetic excuse of a clan. His voice is so cold yet demonic it made Kushina, Mikoto, and Akemi herself have a shiver travel down their spines. The attack got the attention of the clan when many started to run out of their houses, only to see Naruto's hulking form at the gate with one of their own Uchiha there beside him. Soon enough their confused faces changed to enraged ones. "Who are you intruders? And why have you come?" shouted one Uchiha. Naruto ignored the man as he took a step forward, his feet making the area shake with each step he took. Many were a bit shaken by the look in the man's eyes and his sheer size. Walking up to the first Uchiha in his sights, he brought up his hand and spoke with a tone that just sent a shiver down all of the Uchihas in the area. "What I'm doing here is of no concern for you, fool, only that I am cleansing the world of your filth, die trash," and with but a swipe of his hand, the Uchiha was batted away most assuredly, his entire body broken by the massive boulder-sized hands and right through 4 houses and the wall itself. Then without warning, he charged at another group. Being unable to defend themselves in time, he brought down his other hand, engulfed into the blue sphere. Once it hit the ground, the Uchiha didn't even have time to scream. A shift in the earth was their only warning before a slab of earth rose up from behind them and utterly shadowed their forms. Looking up, their eyes widened before it fell. Squelch. The sound of bodies being crushed sounded the area, the immense pressure silencing the now dead Uchiha. The flesh pounded into the deep dirt, the bones shattered and crushed into dust, and the blood imploding from their bodies from the pressure like a balloon seeping from the ground itself, mixing and churning it into a reddish-brown color. Ignoring this, he stepped right onto the slab, earning another wet fleshy squelch. Akemi smirked at this as the blood just seeped more out of the ground and onto Naruto's boot. Yet he showed not a slight of hesitation or disgust for what he did. Even Kushina was used to his brutal ways, albeit were now a bit more ruthless, but was used to remembering the times in her earlier memories. The Kodo though didn't have such luxuries. She was frozen on the spot for a few seconds to readjust to what she just saw. Yes, she had killed before, earned her rights as a shinobi, but what she just saw made everything she's seen in the war look normal, if that's the right word. She shook herself out of her stupor and continued on. She knew things like this were gonna happen, and she didn't have time to slow down and become hesitant. She had the chance to gain a new life. Even if it meant sacrificing her blood and clan for such a thing, she would do it. Besides, they deserved it, for the curse of the clan would have assuredly followed a generation in the future. It would be easier to just wipe it off the face of the planet before it could do any more harm. She soon followed after them, never knowing Naruto's eyes were on her the whole time. This was more than just a purge to the clan, it was also a test as well. A test of loyalty of sorts, something he needed to do and see if Mikoto was truly serious about coming with him. Despite his actions, he needs to know she was truthful in her words. Her actions though said it, though albeit she was hesitant, she was determined to go forward, down the path of a traitor, but on the paved road to a new life, filled with mysterious adventures with many twists and turns, filled with blood, death. Hey, you've gained some, but not all of my trust, Mikoto, but you have done well. Walking forward, he gained a very cold smirk that made Akemi herself shiver and would make Lucifer himself flinch. This night would be one to be remembered. Too bad the only witnesses besides themselves would be dead, and the deities themselves would only be able to watch the unfolding of such a slaughter. Let the purge begin. His voice carried through the whole clan compound like a sonic boom. And then the slaughter began. 3 hours later, clan home compound. It had only been 3 hours since their arrival, and in just that short amount of time, the 3 girls witnessed why exactly Naruto was famed for his actions in the war. In just that small amount of 3 hours, Naruto himself, without a shred of help from any of them, massacred and murdered any and all Uchiha in his path. Buildings fell beneath his feet, women and children were swiftly killed just by his massive killing intent itself, making their hearts implode from the pressure. The men were all just butchered. Limbs were torn off, bones were shattered to dust by his massive feet and fists. His giant Zanbato untouched throughout it all. They all swept through the compound like a raging tornado, with Naruto himself being the center of it all. Sweeping it up like anything and everything in his path was but a speck of nothingness to him. Frankly, since the man could pick up a building with his hand alone and without the least sign of stress and throws it into a group of Uchihas before igniting a time-delaying explosive tag. Before them though was the head's home, the very place where the leader, clan head, and its heir lived. But they weren't alone. Oh no, they weren't alone. Before them was a literal army of Uchiha that all regrouped to their clan head's home, hoping no. Praying they combined with their almighty clan head they can defeat this monster in human skin. They were all that remained of what was left of the once well-known Uchiha clan, reduced to nothing but a handful of what used to be small villages worth. Many were injured in just the crossfire of Naruto's slight small war with the clan itself, some worse than others. But all still had one thing they all had, and that was the immense fear that was adamantly clear in all their eyes at Naruto's giant form looming over them, a mere apparition behind his back showing that of a being behind him. Its glowing yellow eyes showed many things but the one most clear was that of bloodlust. "The demon, he's a monster," a devil muttered one terrified Uchiha, his form all but shaking like a leaf. Naruto seemed to hear the man and gave him a piercing stare right then and there, sent the man into complete hysterics. It was like his mind and soul was bashed repeatedly by multiple sledgehammers. Soon enough his eyes rolled to the back of his head as foam erupted from his mouth. Falling back he landed at the feet of another Uchiha, this one shaking at what just happened to his fellow clansmen. Taking a step forward, making sure the three behind him were safely secure, he spoke. "Now stop wasting my time. Bring out your pathetic excuse of a coward clan head, or so help Kami-sama herself. I will beat and tear it out of each and every one of you." His voice booming like a silent shockwave. His voice made the surrounding buildings creak in protest by the small but silent shockwave. There is no need for a boy to be the voice of an old yet seasoned man. Looking up at the doors he could see a man well dressed like a warrior and stood like one as well. Dressed in a normal shinobi attire except for a katana held within his hand. The man had a tan tone with pure black eyes that were filled with hatred yet firmness of that of a leader. His hair was spiky black, with most of it going past his neckline. Two bangs framed his face, as a scar on his chin in the shape of an X behind this man was none other than Uchiha Fugaku. Naruto narrowed his eyes at the man. He knew this man, despite not knowing his true name, he knew his alias from the bingo book, and truthfully he couldn't believe it and also couldn't help but smirk. "Well, I'll be damned, I never thought you of all people were this wretched clan's head. It's been a while, hasn't, since we last saw each other, and since our last fight, isn't that right, Hanu Mikado? And no, a bad, Flame Emperor. Avatar of Fire." The man's eyes only narrowed much more as those that heard the name gasped utterly in pure shock. Kushina blinked confusingly, as did Akemi, while Mikoto herself was in a state of pure shock. "It has been a long time since I was called that name, but I am sorry, I have given up that title long ago. My time as that person has ended, and now I'm just a man that leads his clan, though I can't say it is a pleasure seeing you again." Naruto's smirk just grew wider. "Ah yes, last time we fought it was during the end of the Second War, it is also where you got that scar, am I right?" The man just twitched while faintly touching the X scar on his chin before sighing. Looking back at the man he hated above all, "I no longer go by the name, because my true name is Azai Uchiha Azai, and I am the clan head of the Uchiha clan. You, sir, have attacked it for reasons unknown, and I shall fulfill my role as the leader of this clan and eliminate you like I failed to do all those years ago." Naruto just closed his eyes and shook his head before clenching his fists together. The wind suddenly picked up at high speeds, with it swirling just around Naruto and Azai, leaving just enough room for their fight. Looking over his shoulder he looked at the three ladies behind him and spoke. "Kushi-chan, Akemi, Mikoto, while I take this man, you go and take care of the stragglers. They shouldn't even be a problem." They nodded before leaving, only for Naruto to shout, "Mikoto?" said the woman, stopped and looked back only to see the deadly look in Naruto's golden slitted eyes. "This is your chance to prove yourself. Do not hesitate, slay any and all that get in your way. Prove to me you are willing to do everything to abandon this life of which you bear, and you will gain the freedom you so desire. If not, you will die along with your clansmen. Be damned what Kushi-chan says. I will kill you. Understood?" She just stood there for a minute before nodding with a determined look in her eyes. Seeing this he sent her off before he turned his attention back at Azai. Seeing his impatient scowl he smirked before grasping Chasuitor in his grasp. Azai, seeing this, grasped the handle of his katana while eyeing the man in front of him warily. He was very curious as to why Mikoto was betraying the clan and her reasons, but right now he had to completely focus on this fight or otherwise. He is going to die this time. Now it's time for us to finish our last fight. I know you're stronger than that old brittle fool Hiruzen, so I want to enjoy this fight a bit now. His baritone voice cracking the ground itself. Azai sighed before slowly pulling out his katana as a red hue outlined his body. Closing his eyes, he circulated his chakra through his system, channeling it and morphing it into the right direction. All for this fight. Snapping his eyes open, Azai's body erupted in flames. It being that of not orange flames or yellow, but pure red crimson. The flames of hell itself. Tightening his grip on his katana, he willed the flames to engulf his blade as well. After it did so, he looked back up at Naruto to see him now adorning a serious firm stone face. He, the giant, pulled out Chiaciator, the giant blade dwarfing his katana's size and length. But that is irrelevant. What matters is the skill to wield a blade you don't have, that you're nothing but a child with a stick, yet he knew this man before him was a master with a blade, for he knew it to be true. Good, you're ready now, let's begin. His shout signaling the start of their final and last duel. With a jump they disappeared before appearing inches from each other, and with a mighty swing their blades. Boom. Higher, and dust erupted into a giant swirling ball. As their blades met, flames flickered all on the ground, as the ground itself shook and cracked under their mighty clash. The major shockwave from their blades meeting shattered all buildings near them, and in a 1-mile radius. The swirling vortex around them seemed to rise and grow in length and width as the sky itself turned black from the first clash. It was like the start of a fight between two titans. Brandishing his blade, Ozai switched it with his left hand before doing a few hand signs, them being nothing but a blur, but to Naruto he was all too familiar with the speed. Take this. Kaiten. Dienden, fire release. Big flame bullet, a literal meteor of fire shot from his mouth in a stream at Naruto. Seeing this, he shifted his blade before swinging it upward while kicking the man's blade away. Spinning in the air, he gathered chakra into Chiaciator before swinging it diagonally at the incoming ball of flame and shouted, Saryukato, soul cut, an arc of purple and yellow energy shot off Chiaciator and clashed with the fireball. Before it went through the blazing ball and towards the shocked Ozai. The ball itself slowly sliding from each other before imploding into nothing but spark and flame. Reacting quickly, Ozai rolled out of the way and watched in slight amazement and a little hint of fear that the attack all but cut right through the ground like a hot knife through butter and cleaved through multiple buildings and clansmen that were in the way of the attack. Ikami, what an attack. Don't get distracted. A voice boomed over him. Looking up he saw Naruto bring down his fist with his sword coming from his left. Moving purely on instinct, he rolled out of the way of the punch with the fist slammed into the ground, shaking the area before he got into a handstand and sprang up, avoiding the swing. Planting his foot on Naruto's right hand that wielding Chiaciator, Ozai grinned before doing a pinwheel kick, kicking Naruto in the face multiple times before flipping into the air. Spinning his blade in his hands, as he watched Naruto get slightly disorientated by the sudden attack, he channeled his chakra through the spinning blade, making his burst into flame before he grasped the handle and sliced horizontally at Naruto. Irizasek, blaze scar, and with that 3 flaming arcs shot out of his blade in a giant sweeping motion toward Naruto. Noticing it at the last minute, he spun Chiaciator in his hand, increasing its velocity, making it into a proverbial shield. It did its job by blocking the flames, that is before Naruto sensed something. Looking up he saw Ozai in the air, bringing down his blazed engulfed sword. Urizaburju, blaze barrage, that's when he in a blur started to swing his weapon multiple times in the air, releasing countless upon countless fire arcs rapidly at Naruto. Letting out a small curse, he channeled energy into his fist, making it be engulfed by a blue sphere that which Ozai narrowed his eye at. Swinging his fist upward, he let out a punch that left blue cracks in the air itself soon enough. Those many arcs rapidly started to disperse right before they hit him inches away from his body. It was like they were hitting an invisible wall of steel. Once it was over, Naruto reacted and slammed his sword into the ground before rapidly doing hand signs that with speeds Ozai couldn't catch. Eat this ration. John, lightning release. False darkness, before he opened his mouth, as a spear of lightning shot out at speeds Ozai couldn't comprehend. Noticing he was still in the air, he did the only thing he could do, he spun adding Kaiten chakra to his body, engulfing it into a sphere of fire, before he condensed into smaller and smaller pieces, before he outstretched his katana outwards. It did what any other lightning rod does, the Raiden reacted and shot at the katana before it started to travel up Ozai's arm. Naruto's eyes narrowed when he saw this, knowing this was many of Ozai's talents. Within the sphere, Ozai grit his teeth before using his affinity to lightning and channeled the lighting from his sword to his body and out his other arm, which shot out like a beam. He smiled seeing it work. Has still got it. Once Naruto saw the light blue spot coming from the sphere, he chuckled. Old fool still has it. A beam of lightning shot out towards Naruto, who raised his Zanbato, letting it slam right into it. Reacting quickly, he twirled his blade in the air before stabbing it into the ground, letting the lightning disperse within. Then suddenly he whipped out his other hand and let it smack right into the stomach of one Ozai, making the man gasp from the sudden loss of oxygen and pain. Before he too was sent flying into a building. Not letting up, he grabbed his sword, pulled it out of the ground, and channeled his energy into his before swinging it at speeds none could match. He shouted, Saurushard, Soul Shredder. That's when, similar to Ozai's attack, only much fiercer and stronger, did multiple upon countless arcs of purple-yellow streaked arcs, shooting of his swings. Each hit made the building be covered in more smoke, as painful grunts could be heard from within. Thinking enough was enough, he stopped in stride and waited. When the smoke cleared up, there was the rumble of wood, and metal was Ozai, sitting upon a pile of wood breathing deeply, with multiple gashes and slices upon his body. Blood dripped from his body and stained his clothing red. His hand resting on his katana which was stabbed into the ground as his eyes glared into his own golden slitted ones. Glaring back, "Get up, this has only started, fool, and don't hold back," he said as a yellow hue of energy erupted from him as Ozai just sighed before closing his eyes. Only to snap them open to reveal the fully mature Sharing and the three commas spinning rapidly as a scowl etched into his face. Standing up with a small imp, he grasped his katana and forced all of his chakra throughout his body once more, making his body explode into flames once more. Letting the flames go through him, he sighed while relishing in the feeling of the flames covering his body. That is before he glared through his Sharingan eyes at the firm stone form of Naruto. "Now let's finish this," he said before igniting his sword once more, while Naruto himself just gathered more energy into Chaosiator, making it glow purple as yellow streaks of energy cackled around it. His golden slit eyes turned cold and merciless, which soon became the eyes of what he is named for. I couldn't agree more, and with that they jumped towards once more. Once they were mere inches from each other, they both swung down their blades, a loud battle cry. Pai Sudareku, Fire Strike. Saurashimuriapu, Soul Reap. Boom. Their second clash made the whole compound itself start to shake uncontrollably. Even Akemi, Kushina, and Makoto, who were fighting and defeating the last of the Uchiha, stopped, as did the Uchiha. All before their sights was the giant forming purple sphere that crackled with yellow energy, with flames circling it like a ring, with three more of these rings going higher and higher of the whole sphere. The ground broke and shattered, the buildings in the blast radius were blown away, and Uchiha caught in the area were completely incinerated by the intense energies battling each other. "Whoa" was the only word that came out of Makoto's mouth, while Kushina and Akemi just nodded dumbfounded. Even she, Akemi, was shocked at the power being displayed. She had no doubt that sphere alone could severely injure her greatly if she was in her beast form. "Naru-kun, you'll make it out okay, you always do. After all this is all over, we can all leave this horrible place and live the life we've dreamed for. One from all this blood, death, war, all of it," were Kushina's inner thoughts as she watched the sphere of death consume all in its path. They watched as the sphere grew in size, even passing the clouds in the sky itself, before Akemi saw something that made her eyes go completely wide. "Shit. Kushina, Makoto got behind me." Noticing her urgent tone, they did so and jumped behind Akemi. Good thing too, for as Akemi completely transformed into her beast form and circled their bodies with her massive tails, ignoring the painful screams from the surrounding Uchiha from her action. She shrouded herself and the other two in a barrier of her yokai. The reason she did this? Simple, the sphere of death started to slowly crack. White cracks appeared in the center. As it so, the cracks became even more frequent, and with but a second to spare, and all those that witnessed it, even all of the elemental nations itself, the sphere exploded. Boom. And all hell was unleashed in a cataclysmic explosion which rocked the very foundations of Hai no Kuni itself. The sky itself turned pitch black as the land shook and trembled under the massive explosion, the shockwave going all across the nation, hitting, making every single living thing feel its aftershock. None were killed, but they felt something happened when they all felt the same thing. A rush of wind dying down when it reached all the borders of every nation and hitting the ocean itself. Throughout all this, Kushina, Akemi, and Makoto all hoped and prayed Naruto was okay. 10 minutes later. 10 minutes had passed since the explosion, and since then Kushina and Makoto were safely protected by Akemi. The barrier she set up was cracked all around, but still held up. They were slightly buried under much rubble, but, with a slight flick of Akemi's tails, did it all burst into the air and fall completely away from them. "Ugh, my head," was the pained drawl from Makoto as she rubbed her aching head. Kushina just blinked her eyes rapidly while getting back her vision from the sudden white light that completely filled her vision from before. Akemi herself was silent through it all. Why? Well, we're about to find out, for when Kushina noticed the silence, she looked at Akemi only for her jaw to drop, as did Makoto's when they saw what Akemi was seeing. Akemi was standing in front of them with a shaky finger pointing in front of her. Her eyes were as wide as humanly or demonically possible. In front of her was nothing but pitch black burnt buildings. Rumble from the buildings was completely burned to a crisp and are turned to ashes. The bodies of the Uchiha were all dead, not a single one was alive from the sudden explosion, for they didn't get the protection Kushina and Makoto got. Their bodies burned, making them all completely unrecognizable. But what really was the eye-catcher was the giant crater where the clan head compound used to be, the size being completely unimaginable. Akemi honestly knew it was bigger than her own beast form. "Okami," Makoto uttered. Kushina snapped out of her stupor before she started running straight to the center of the crater, her eyes filled with fear. Fear of losing the one she loved right when they were so close to leaving the land of death. The fear of losing him forever. Naruto-kun. Her voice resounded through the area and she jumped into the crater. Frantically searching, she never saw Akemi and Mikoto landing in the crater, as well as worry in their own eyes. They all started to search the massive crater for any sign of Naruto, only for their hope to start slowly dwindling and slowly be filled with horror. It couldn't be that. Naruto died. Right? Please Kami, please don't take him away from me, please Kami-sama, please, I beg you. Kushina's prayers flowed through the silent wind. Not hearing anything for a while made her slowly start to burst into tears. She pulled her legs up to her chest and sobbed into her knees. Akemi let a tear fall, not able to feel an energy signature anywhere in the vicinity. She slowly approached her former container and hugged her close, whispering soft words to her. Trying to calm her, but to no avail, for even she was crying. Mikoto appeared next to her and hugged her as well while screaming at herself for asking Naruto to do this. She never wanted this to happen. Naruto-kun, come back, please come back, I love you so much, please come back to me, we've only just now come together, please, please. Her desperate words formed out of her sobs of anguish. Her prayers seemed to be answered in the sound of falling rubble and a grunt of sorts, though they didn't hear of her crying. A hand shot out of the ground before it clenched and with a slight twitch. Bang. The body rose up from the dirt. It was a different shape than the giant Naruto or clan head Azai. But when the golden hair showed, it was a dead giveaway. When the man fully rose up from the ground, he bent his neck and rolled it a few times, popping the creaks and such. He then dusted off his shoulder and clothes before shooting his hand once more into the dirt and pulled out Jaosiator. Only it now being smaller like the man was. When Naruto looked himself over, he frowned and shook his head. Man didn't expect the seal to go off like that during the clash. Those energies must have disrupted the seal. Guess I'm like this, huh? Oh well, that's when Naruto's ears perked up when he heard the sounds of crying. When he heard the voice of the one crying though, he froze. Kushina-chan. Looking around the area, he searched frantically until his eyes landed upon the three forms of Akemi, Mikoto with Kushina surrounded in their arms crying into her knees. Using his speed, he quickly approached them, needing to help quell Kushina and see if she was okay. Why Naruto-kun, why did you die? Her words made him frown, and coming up from behind them, he let his shadow slowly come over all of them. Slowly, ever so slowly, he crouched down idly, noting his height was back to a normal 6'5". Looking up at Kushina, Akemi, and Mikoto, he sighed before speaking. Now Kushina, why would I think I'm dead? His words seemed to strike a chord when all three of them froze on the spot. Slowly but assuredly they all turned their heads into his direction, their eyes all wide and more so Kushina's. Her violet eyes gleamed and glistened from her fallen tears. Fear and terror slowly dissipating and replaced with hope and happiness. Reaching out with her quavering voice alone, Kushina spoke in all but a whisper, but was so filled with hope that if told wrong would break her spirit altogether. Naruto-kun, is it you? The said blonde just smiled warmly. Of course it is him, did you really think that could kill me? Seriously now? He said, but all he got was a red missile slamming into him, knocking him to the ground. Only to see to his secret amusement both of them passed out with nosebleeds with cherry red faces. And they call men perverts. Seeing the predicament though, he slowly, ever so slowly, made 3 smokeless cage bushins, having 2 pick up Akemi and Mikoto, while he substituted with the last without smoke so as to not wake his sleeping home. After doing so, he looked at his 3 clones and spoke. Okay, you 3, you know where to go, I'll meet you at the village in Nami, no Kuni, get them in their beds, they'll need to sleep for what is to come tomorrow. He said with his eyes on all 3 of them. The cage bushins nodded before 2 of the 3 jumped away, leaving the one carrying Kushina, its creator. And you boss? Naruto just gave him a stare before speaking. I'm gonna do what I said I would, and that is the complete annihilation of the Uchiha clan. The clone nodded, knowing the underlying message. Seeing this, Naruto nodded before walking up to Kushina. Seeing her sleeping peaceful face, he let out a small sigh before leaning down and kissing her on the cheek. Don't worry Kushi, I'm yours, and my dream will become a reality, and I'll fight through the 9 circle of hell and back 100x before I fail that promise. With it, he looked back at the clone. Seeing this, the clone disappeared in a burst of speed. Knowing it was gone, Naruto strapped Jaosiator to his back, channeling chakra to make it stick. He soon jumped out of the crater and landed right on the very end of where the main gate of the Uchiha clan used to be. Seeing the crater was still within the Uchiha area made him sigh in relief. But then I can do this all in one go, and before taking a deep breath he stretched out his hands before he narrowed his eyes. He suddenly gripped the air, making it look like he was holding onto a wall of plastic. Now let the history and all clues of this wretched clan be gone. So with a mighty heave he pulled both his arms downward, knowing what he was doing was nothing compared to other things he has done. He slowly but assuredly smiled when he felt the ground shake and tremble before it suddenly started to shift. He watched him passively as the whole Uchiha district compound and surrounding forest all suddenly rose up into the air. He smirked cruelly when he saw his work about to be completed. The world will never know the dark history that was the Uchiha clan. The clan, as the slab of land he usually creates was now on a monumental scale of size. It was high in the sky before it slowly started to lean to the left and slowly fell. He grinned as he watched it go down before he swiftly turned around and chuckled. Boom. He felt the wind blow past him from the crash of the land slab slamming into the ground, possibly the shockwave reaching the Fire Country Palace itself. Through it all he just smirked before raised his index finger at the Uchiha main gate. Almost forgot about you, he said before pointing his finger down, making the gates shift as well before they too suffered the same fate of being crushed by the earth itself. Seeing his job done, Naruto sighed before grinning. Well, time to go and finally be free of the chains that bind us to this land. With that, Naruto's form disappeared, leaving nothing behind. No blood, no dead bodies of countless Uchiha, no shredded buildings or the crater the size of. Only a slab of earth looking normal as ever, which could possibly be the new land for some rich merchant or farmer. If only those people knew what lay underneath. 2 hours later, Nami no Kuni village. Upon arriving in the small village in Mai no Kuni, Naruto had come upon a hotel where he knew his clones took the girls into. Walking inside, he lets out a sigh as he looks himself over once more. It would seem his body went down with a major overhaul from the giant size of 25 feet tall to his normal height of 6'5", with that still unusual height for most people. His giant muscles were now compacted and lean, as his body was now more of a body built for great power and speed. He eyed his hand warily before clenching them as his eyes narrowed. The Chaosiator upon his back was, as well, smaller in length, being 6'0" in length and 3 feet in width. Didn't expect this to happen. Guess the seal was destroyed when it was exposed to those energies. Guess I'll need to make a new one, he idly noted. That's when he came upon the door number 248. Pulling out a key from his not much ruined baggy pants. He entered it into the lock and upon twisting it open did he slowly open the door. Only to see Mikoto asleep on the couch in the living room, covered up with a small pillow under her head. He eyed her form warily before shaking his head. She proved herself back there, so there was no reason for him to still be suspicious of her. Well, not as much as before. He slowly walked past the kitchen and over to Mikoto. Looking down at her, he sighed before pulling the cover that was touching the floor and covered up her feet and her shoulders before adjusting her pillow a bit, but quietly, as to not wake her up. After this he stood up and left, not seeing the soft gentle smile grace Mikoto's face and her small murmur. If he did hear it, he would have been frozen on the spot. Naruto-kun. Walking through the hallway, he comes upon the master bedroom and opens it only to see something that made him let loose a smile. A heartfelt one at that. For the scene before him was truly something he has been dreaming to see for so long now. That being Kushina, his home, asleep upon the king-size bed, the sheets covering her figure and over her shoulders. Her pale skin almost glowing in the moonlight and her maroon long hair sprawled out all on the bed and her body giving her a regal look. He idly noted the little fox kid asleep in her arms, meaning it was Akemi. Letting out a small sigh, he slowly unhooked Chaosiator from his back and leaned it against the wall before removing his boots and shirt. After doing so, he slowly crept onto the other side of the bed and covered himself up in the sheets. Slowly he scooted closer to Kushina before he slowly wrapped his arms around her frame. Ever so slowly he pulled her to him before she was facing him, her face to his own, her body pressed against his own. He smiled at her sleeping face before giving a kiss to her forehead before letting out a sigh. Good night, Kushi. Starting tomorrow we all start our new lives, no longer separated, but together. His words seemed to be heard as a smile spread across her face. Placing a hand on her cheek, he let his eyes drift off into the dream world, knowing he was together with the one he loved the most and cherished beyond everything in the world. Ever. When she was sure, he left her face lit up like a Christmas tree before she placed her hands on her cheeks and actually let out a small squeal. Damn, Kushi-chan, you are quite the unintentional flirt, aren't you? The teasing voice surprised her, making her look at the bed to see the vulpine grin of Akemi back in her human form, wearing the same of what she wore yesterday. Kushina just sputtered out a response as Akemi just let out a chuckle. But Naruto, we could find him walking out the hallway and into the living room to wake Mikoto, only to see her to his slight surprise already up and ready. She wore the same as yesterday, but now her eyes showed how eager she was to be getting away from the accursed land for which she has lived. Giving her a nod, which she slowly returned, giving him a big smile. He just walked past her before saying, Mikoto has Kushina-chan and Akemi as well, and you can meet me at the docks. We leave when you're all ready. Seeing her confused nod, he kept walking till he opened and closed the door behind him. After she left, Mikoto looked at the ground and let out a small smile. She remembered even if he didn't know what he did last night and honestly was shocked at what he did. She thought he hated her, but after making sure she was okay and warm, she couldn't be happier with the choice she made of coming with Kushina. 1 hour later, docks. So, any idea what Naruto's planning here at the docks? Akemi asked as she rested up Kushina's head in her fox form. She got a negative response from both women. They had already left the hotel after hearing Naruto paid for the night and all. So once they left, they headed out to the docks, all wondering what he was doing, but Kushina already had a suspicion but needed to see it to make sure. Boy. The shout made them all perk up before casting their gazes up to see to their surprise Naruto standing before them, Chaosiator upon his back. But what they saw what he was standing on is what got most of their attention, or Kushina's case. Oh my Kami. You got a caravel. Her eyes were wide as possible with a shine in them that just radiated excitement. Akemi just snickered at this while Mikoto just giggled. Naruto himself chuckled before speaking, that I did, but let's hurry up, I want to set sail before the sun fully rises. Hearing this, they nodded before jumping up onto the boat. As their feet touched the hardwood floor, they set out to explore their new vessel and memorized every inch of it. While Naruto himself untied the rope and let loose the sails. He then set out a few cage bushins to start manning the ship while he went to steer while also waiting on the girls. It didn't take long when they rushed out onto the deck when they felt the boat start to rock and move. Looking down at them, he spoke. Girls up here. Hearing him, Kushina jumped beside him and spoke. Naruto-kun, I know we were gonna use a boat and all, but how will we man such a vessel with only ourselves? He just stared at her before chuckling before patting her head and ruffling her hair, making her pout cutely. He then pointed down at the sails, which she followed in his direction. Why cage bunchins? Of course, she just blinked before smacking her forehead and sighing. Of course, only Naruto would use such an ingenious idea for such a productive chore. Looking back at the amused Naruto, she spoke. I see. He just smiled before wrapping his arm around her shoulder before he planted a kiss on her cheek. Looking up with a slight blush, Kushina just smiled before leaning against him. Looking down at her, he smiled before looking out at the vast ocean. He inhaled the deep sea breeze as the wind blew his hair. This is just a taste of what he and Kushina dreamed of. A life full of freedom. The chains and shackles that bound them to their bloody past were all but destroyed now, and now were on their way to fulfilling their dream. He looked at Akemi and Mikoto. I never expected though to be taking 2 more women along. Oh well, things will get interesting, that's for sure. He was cut out of his musings though when suddenly. Boom. Uzumaki to Naruto. Stop right there and face judgment. Was the yell that got his attention. Looking over his shoulder as the explosion of water erupted from the starboard side of the ship. Possibly a cannonball, he saw to his utter hate and wrath. A full-out armada of Iwagakure Navy ships. With the leading one having the admiral of Iwagakure on the front side of the ship. Damn their persistence, they even brought out their ships, Naruto uttered as both Mikoto and Kushina gawked at the sight of those countless ships. How does a shinobi village even have ships? And one from Tsuchi no Kuni of all places. Mikoto said as more cannonballs sailed past their ship, seemingly just to scare them. Naruto himself just twitched every so often. I'd say they had another branch of their village out at the ocean border and made a docking village for their own use. Maybe these were for when they attacked Kurigakure. Maybe. Akemi spoke as she eyed each and every ship behind them. What I want to know is how they knew we would be here. Did one of their spies recognize us? Kushina said, clenching her hand upon the wooden railing while practically glaring at the one thing that was keeping them all from leaving the elemental nations forever. Naruto just walked beside Kushina with his eyes shadowed by his bangs. His fists were clenched so tight blood leaked from both hands as veins popped out of his arms. The trembling of his arms showed how close he was to his breaking point. Kushina saw him and was about to ask if he was okay. Only to be too late when he reared back his head and practically roared. "Ukami, forsaken bastards. I warned you to leave me alone. But no, you're foolish, ignorant, pathetic Tsuchikage is too damn adamant to have my head. Well, guess what, you won't be leaving here alive, any of you." His words echoing across the open sea and making the shinobi upon the Iwa ships tremble. Looking at the girls to his right, they saw his golden slit eyes now glowing a fiery gold. Kushina, Mikoto hold on, and Akemi holds the wheel. Things are about to get very destructive. Hearing Akemi's eyes widen before she jumps to the wheel as Kushina and Mikoto latch onto the railing. Seeing this, he reared his gaze back at the armada and raised both his arms. "You fools chased me, and you shall pay the price. This event shall be remembered as our leaving of the elemental nations. All shall bear witness to your death. Say hell to Shinigami-sama for me." He then without warning clenched his fist and crouched with his arms across his chest. Then without a second later he reared them back. Only for both of his fists hit the air, making cracks appear, and without a moment to waste a sudden shockwave erupted from him and right into the ocean itself. The Iwagakure would forever burn it into their minds of Naruto's golden fiery slitted orbs glaring down on all of them as the ocean floor that floated upon their entire armada of fully packed ships of Iwagakure shinobi. were all but swallowed and crushed by monumental tidal waves that rose up from both of their sides. They reached past the sky itself and came crashing down onto them as a giant whirlpool appeared under them. Their screams of horror and anguish rang loud and true. The sounds of boats being crushed and swirling water sounded in the area. The three women watched in utter shock and amazement at the sight they just beheld. Even as the aftershocks of the event rocked the boat, they couldn't speak a word at what they just witnessed. An entire armada of ships completely and utterly destroyed. By the very waters they sailed upon, it was ironic really. The very sea itself they swore to sail acted in total betrayal and crushed them beneath their endless pressure of water. Seeing them gone, Naruto let his hands loose before turning around only to see the three girls gawking at him like he was some sort of god. He blinked before chuckling. "You're gonna just keep staring at me like that?" he said, amused really at how they were acting. Sure, he too was shocked at what his powers could do in water, but soon got over it and acted normal a few days later. Even if he did accidentally swallow a whole mountain with a wave of water. It was an accident of course, and a result of him practicing his power on open water. Upon reaching the wheel, he gave Akemi a grateful nod before letting out a sigh. "Well, let our new life begin, hope you girls are ready," he soon got his answer when suddenly. "Naruto-kun, that was so cool." Kushina's shout erupted before her form was on his back, her arms wrapped around his neck with an excited grin upon her face. Mikoto just gave a grin herself after witnessing what she just saw. She was totally assured now going with Naruto was the best possible choice she ever made. It was sure to be adventurous, especially with him around. Akemi was beside Naruto in a second, her eyes practically shining like two pairs of stars. "You have got to teach me that," was her reply before she shifted into her kid form and sat upon his head nuzzling into his golden black streaked hair. Naruto just let out a sigh while he steered the ship onward away from the elemental nations. Never looking back at the land that has caused him and Kushina so much pain. He would never look back at the land he would rather tear asunder, but would now just live a new life with the ones around him and the one he loves so much. Though he would soon find out Kushina wasn't the only girl to gain his love during this new life. It's been 2 weeks since Naruto and the girls left the elemental nations and set sail for their new life on the open seas. Ever since then the group of 4 have been enjoying their voyage because since they were first out of sight of the elemental nations did each and every single person feel a great weight lifted off their shoulders. The burden of just being in that cursed land and its nightmares that came with it were finally free from them, yet even then they couldn't forget their past lives. Over the last 2 weeks, the crew of 4 have kept themselves busy, even despite the calming sounds of the clear blue seas, they always kept themselves in tip-top form. For each one knew even for Akemi you are to never let your guard down even in times of peace. That was why the 4 trained in slight warm-up exercises to keep themselves up and better themselves while not damaging the boat they stood upon. Though some interesting things have happened with just the first week alone. For just on their second day during their voyage, they encountered something in the skies, which had the unfortunate luck of being hit by one of Mikoto's jutsus, to which it had fallen upon the deck cooked to a crisp. Though what was strange about the bird was that it strangely enough had some kind of hat on its head, with the word Nixu KK, News Ku stitched in. That wasn't the only thing, for the bird was oddly enough carrying a sack of what looked to be papers of sort. Now normally such things were a waste of both time and not even worth looking into, but being former shinobi and a Bijuu of millenniums of knowledge all knew everything was resourceful. And they were all proven correct. When the 4 searched them they found out they were newspapers with slips of paper with specific individuals' faces, with the words bounty on them. That wasn't the only thing though, because to Naruto's amusement did they find a map. A map of all things, yet this map was one that was both strange, yet helped all of them realize just how much there is than the elemental nations. For the map showed many things that made all 4 of their eyes widen in pure shock. Because compared to the lands they were seeing now, the elemental nation itself was nothing but a speck of dirt compared to what they saw on the map. Of course most of them didn't know what to do with it, but to Naruto's slight surprise Mikoto did take more interest in the map than all 4 of them. It was like she was born to read maps, decipher them, and make new ones. Kushina had said she was one of the greatest minds she has ever seen both in fighting and reading maps of enemy bases. But there was more to it than that. Mikoto had actually stayed in her room working constantly at night drawing out the map, its islands, and the name of each sea, and the giant line of landmass, as well. It took a while but Mikoto had come out and explained to them all what she was able to find out. Flashback. "So, you found out about what type of land and seas are then?" questioned Naruto, his eyes now roaming over the new map Mikoto had drawn out from the other one, only this time the words were clearer and having the name of each sea named out, yet the islands were still unnamed, for it was pretty obvious. They had yet to see another island. Still, it's remarkably done, so good it beats every other navigator's map I've seen hands down. Said woman nodded as she sat upon a chair, a small smile on her face as she grabbed her tools and started to explain while both Kushina and Akemi looked over her shoulder with curious eyes as well. Taking a deep breath, Makoto explained while pushing up her glasses a bit. That was another thing it would seem Makoto needed her glasses when she worked on the maps. Yes, I have most of them because I don't know if I'm entirely sure if they're correct or not because the language is similar to our own, but at the same time not all the same. The lands and all are the same from the other map. It's just the names that signify which sea is what and what that giant red line of land is. I was able to decipher what I could though, so let me point out what we have here. Seeing the nod from Naruto, she continued. From what I was able to see, we have the sea itself, which is called Birch, plus the Blue Sea, which itself is split up into 4 parts to which they have their own names. They are as follows. Kita no Yumi, North Blue, which is the northern part of the map right here, she pointed out, to which she gained a nod from him. Seeing this, she continued, the second one is called Minami no Umi, South Blue, which is the southern part of the map. The third one is called Nishi no Yumi, West Blue. This is on the western part of the map, and the last one is called Higashi no Yumi, East Blue. Those are the 4 seas from what I could decipher. She explained before she looked up to see Naruto nodding. I see, then what are these lines right here and that giant red landmass? To which Makoto scratched her head a bit in embarrassment. Ah, that, I forgot to explain. Well, that giant red landmass is called the Akaitsuchi no Toriku, the red line. From what I could tell, it's a line that separates the 4 seas, thus making all but one way to get to the other. That being this, she said, pointing in the center of the red line to show 4 lines intersecting with each other as they all 4 connected to the 4 seas. Then she pointed her finger on the last line before skimming it down the red line and onto a specific line. That was what the map called the Rivsu Mountain, Reverse Mountain, to where the line here leads onto this line, which is called the Idai Narukumro, the Grand Line. I don't know why it's called this, but that is what it's called and where it is. She finished explaining, to which Naruto nodded. That is before Kushina saw something before pointing it out. Oh no, Maiko-chan, what's that right there? She said, pointing at the green lines outlining the Grand Line and touching the 4 seas. Seeing this, Makoto gave a small smile before explaining. Ah yes, well, that was what I could decipher called the Keimyu Boruto, the calm belt, though I have no idea why it's called that. Kushina blinked before nodding at this. Naruto, seeing the map once more after reviewing everything Makoto told him in his mind and storing it away, spoke. I see, and do you know where we are exactly? This made Makoto frown as she looked at the map once more in confusement. She idly twirled a pencil between her fingers before letting out a sigh. I'm sorry, Naruto-san, but without getting to another island, I don't know exactly where we are. I'm sorry, she said, slightly disappointed in herself, to which Kushina gently grasped her shoulder. Akemi just smiled softly while she glanced toward Naruto, to her surprise, smiling. She watched when he slowly placed a hand on Makoto's shoulder, making her freeze, but his next words made her drop her pencil in complete shock. That is of no worry, Makoto-san, you have done more than I could have asked of you, for not only did you make a new map out of the first, but translated it for us. That will greatly help us all in the future, and since you've done such an excellent job, I want you, Uchiha Makoto, to be our cruise navigator, with a small smile, as he mentally chuckled, seeing the shocked expressions of all the girls as the sound of a pencil clattering and rolling on the wooden floor sounded the room. Makoto couldn't believe what she just heard. Naruto wanted her to be the cruise navigator. He trusted her enough for such an important task. A task that keeps the person responsible for keeping the ship on its trajectory and on course. She couldn't hardly believe it, yet the words still rang true within the very depths of her mind. Slowly looking up, she saw the golden eyes of Naruto looking down on her, staring now into her onyx ones, but what truly shattered her right there was the approval in his eyes, to which she just couldn't hold herself back. Unshedded tears swelled up in her eyes while her hands trembled as her lips just quivered until it became too much for her. Which resulted in her speaking. I won't fail you, Naruto-san. I will be the best navigator you will ever see. That I promise you with my very soul. She said with such conviction, it slightly surprised both Akemi and Kushina. Naruto, though, just nodded his head before he patted Makoto's shoulder before walking toward the door. And I expect nothing less from you then, Makoto-san, but do not tire yourself out, that would be hazardous to your health, which is something I don't want. With him closing the door, leaving behind 3 shocked women. Well, that is before his words fully affected them, which got reactions out of all of them. That being, Akemi gaining a giant vulpine teasing grin before she started speaking. WOW Makoto-chan, seems Naruto-kun is starting to hold you in higher regard now, if those words are anything to go by, she said with a giggle. Makoto just flushed a great beet red, which Kushina caught, while Akemi was too busy chuckling to herself to notice. Leaning down, Kushina spoke. Maiko-chan, why are you blushing? She said with a grin of all things. Makoto just blushed greater, to which Kushina noticed, making her grin go wider before she leaned down to her ear and spoke. Is it because that Naruto-kun's trusting you with such a task, or is it because of something else? IWONDER, teasing clear as the bright blue sky in her tone. Makoto shivered at her words, not wanting to meet her gaze, as her face just answered Kushina's question right there. It glowed even brighter, to the point it matched Kushina's maroon blood-red hair. Kushina's grin turned into a smile which had no teasing and not a shred of her usual mischief. Instead, there was content yet happiness in her smile that surprised Makoto on the inside. Though she couldn't hold it back any longer when Kushina spoke her next words. I see you like Naruto-kun as well. Well, I don't mind sharing, but with only Akemi-chan and Yumiko-chan, anyone else, and I would have killed them already, so do your best to gain his love, because you have my blessing. With that, Makoto couldn't hold herself back before her nose gained a nosebleed, before her eyes rolled to the back of her head as she passed out on her desk. Kushina smiled. Flashback end. Ever since then, Makoto has kept her word, and not knowing it impressed Naruto each day with her work. At night, she would continue to analyze the map over and over, looking over every single detail, major or minor, she didn't care about. Makoto wanted to prove herself, and she did day after day, not only improving her already amazing skill in navigating, but the detail of where they were exactly. For her to do this, Makoto has been outside looking around on the bird's nest, as sailors call it, before writing down what she could get before rushing to her room. This worried both Kushina and Akemi, but Naruto assured them both that if she got too chaotic, he would have a talk with her. Thankfully enough, though, she did slow down a bit on the fourth day of their voyage, but that was because of something else entirely. It caught their attention. She was slowing down more than usual and was starting to get a bit more moody, you could say. It got to the point where Akemi was sensing something odd from Makoto until it fully got her attention, which was the fifth day of their voyage. Flashback. Walking down the hallway towards the captain's quarters was Akemi, a serious expression on her normal easygoing and somewhat teasing face. It's been a total of 5 days since their voyage, and since then Akemi has never been happier, but when Makoto started acting strangely, she started looking into her jeans with her demonic smell. For a while she was only smelling humanity, anxiety, happiness, and other such things, but one thing did catch her attention, and she needed to talk with Naruto about it right now. Humming up to his door, Akemi took a breath before. Knock. Knock. Come in. Hearing this, Akemi opened the door to see Naruto sitting at his desk reading over what appeared to be another map of Makoto's. His facial expression etched with concentration as his eyes roamed over the map with extreme intensity. It made Akemi slightly, ever so slightly, shiver. Not out of fear or some foolish notion such as that. But it was out of excitement. Shaking the chills out of her, Akemi walked forward and spoke. Naruto-kun, we need to talk now. Hearing her words, he looked up to see her serious expression, thus seeing it. He put down the map, the intensity in his eyes completely gone now, yet the coldness of which he always had still lingered. Yes, what is Akemi-chan? Ever since the voyage, his relationship between himself and Akemi has been somewhat strained since Naruto knew before him and has known about him as long as Kushina has. She has been there alongside Kushina throughout her and his life and has seen him for what he is. She, like Kushina, knows the deeds he's done. Everything about him does Akemi know through Kushina, so it only seemed fair for him to be friendly around Akemi. Though that didn't mean Akemi wasn't just friendly around him. Well, it's about Makoto-chan. You see, for a while now we've all been sensing something wrong with her, as of late, correct? To which he nodded. He's seen her slow change, and he could see something was wrong with her, to which he has questioned her about it, but she had told him not to worry, but it did the exact opposite, and it made him worry. He didn't really know why he was worrying over her, but for some reason in just a week, Makoto had already washed away most of his suspicion of her with how much she worked and how dedicated she was to what she was great at. Truly, he couldn't find a reason for it, but he knew one thing, and that was he would do anything to help Makoto, since she wasn't only Kushina's best friend, but also Uchiha. Makoto was his nakama. Comrade. That was more than enough of a reason for him. Well, for the past day or so I've been sniffing out her scent to see if I could find anything wrong with her, and it seems she is pretty normal overall, but when Naruto heard the bud, his eyes narrowed when he saw Akemi's troubled expression. Yes. Kitsune let out a sigh before looking him in the eye and spoke. Well, it would seem that all the feeling she has is one she is trying to cover up, and that's some kind of pain. Lately, not only her scent showed an underlining tint of pain, but her body has started to show signs of physical pain, not on the outside, but on the inside, and due to my perceptive vision, I can tell you right now something is going on with Makoto-chan and her body, and I know what it is. This made Naruto perk up at her words. Oh, what is it then? Akemi this time took it upon herself to take a seat on Naruto's bed before speaking. Only this time Naruto idly noted her crimson-slitted eyes were now dead serious, with a glow in her eyes that showed how important her next words were gonna be. Well, it would seem, Mikoto-chan isn't technically human. Once Naruto heard those words, his eyes, as well, gained a serious glint before he stood up, completely shadowing over Akemi's form by a good few inches. His face set in a stone-firm expression as he eyed Akemi for any kind of deception from her words. Once he saw none, he let out a sigh before speaking. I see, then please elaborate as to what she really is. From what I've seen, she's as human as can be. This made the shake her head. That's the thing, you see, Mikoto-chan doesn't know it either, but from what I can tell deep within her, I smelled a very familiar scent, which was that of another demon that was from Makai. This demon had the ability to mask its scent in which way it wanted, so it couldn't or didn't want to be found. The only ones that could smell them were me and my clan, the Kitsunes, but the demon race themselves were quite powerful, rivaling actually. How Mikoto has their blood is probably from one of the demons mating with Mikoto's ancestor, and the blood of the demon watered down through the centuries till it couldn't be awakened. Naruto nodded at her explanation. I see what she is then, and is it possible to awaken her demonic blood? This got a surprised reaction from Akemi, but she nodded either way. Well, for one, she is what Makai has called for eons the Yami no Gurka Kami, the Darkness Hellfire Wolf. They're a wolf that specialize in the Makai elements of both darkness and hellfire, which are both extremely powerful. Powerful enough to injure, they are very powerful, and are to be taken when sighted with the utmost of extreme caution. Yet I'm kinda surprised Miko-chan is one of them, as well. Anyway, on to your second question. To awaken Mikoto's blood, that is if she wants to, I would be able to awaken her blood fully and completely by using one of my demonic techniques, but in doing so there would be one drawback. This made Naruto raise an eyebrow in curiosity. That being? Akemi took a breath before frowning. Mikoto will no longer be human, she would be a full demon, but she would still be able to use her Sharingan, copy we lie, due to the bloodline being demonic in nature, as is most other bloodlines. Her overall skills would skyrocket, like her physical strength, speed, reflexes, durability, stamina, and both her sight and smell would improve to demonic levels, having them able to see farther sights than any human and some demons could possibly see, and sense of smell would grow, making her able to smell any scent no matter what it is and how far it is. That particular scent is what most of her kind favors though. Lastly, like myself, Mikoto would become immortal where she can't and won't die by young age and won't grow old. She will stop aging at 21, and she will gain a regenerative healing to where she can regenerate a lost limb, but that would take some time getting used to. This got a nod from Naruto as he ushered her to continue. And next she would have a demon form like myself when I'm in my beast form or a hybrid form, with only showing some of her animalistic features like her tails and ears. Other than that, not much else, though I do need to ask, why are you interested in awakening her blood? She with a curious tone. Naruto, listening through her explanation, nodded through it all as he thought about Mikoto's reaction when she heard of this. It made him smirk a bit when she did hear about it, as he already knows Kushina's reaction to it being that she'd probably glomp Mikoto while grinning cheerily through it all. Honestly, it was an amusing thought. Shaking his head, he looked back at Akemi, remembering her question, to which he replied, isn't it obvious? Well, from what you told me, this is starting to hurt her, and I can't have that. Mikoto-san is our crew member, and I'll be damned before she is hurt because of something as trivial as this. That is why, Akemi, I want her demonic blood awakened before it totally consumes her and harms to beyond all type of healing, and I can't have that. For one, she's Kushina-chan's friend and by extension yourself, so I don't want her dead. Hearing this, Akemi let loose a grin so big Naruto wondered if it would split her face. That's when she acted. Thank you, Naruto-kun. She yelled, to which she lost her composure and actually pounced on Naruto, making fall back from his chair and onto the floor. He let out a painful grunt before he looked down to see the vulpine grinning Akemi, her now animalistic features showing her 2 fluffy red fox ears and 9 flowing tails, all twitching in excitement. Flashback end. And on that same day, did Akemi round up both Kushina and Mikoto before taking them to Naruto's quarters, saying it was an important announcement. It confused them, but when they reached his quarters, where they met with a serious Naruto standing before them with his eyes staring straight at Mikoto. It honestly made the woman fidget with his golden eyes on her, staring straight at her. It was like his eyes stared straight into her very soul, searching for something. He told them that Akemi had told him of something about Mikoto that needs to be said and said now, to which confused both Kushina and Mikoto especially, but Akemi spoke either way. Explaining what she was able to find out about Mikoto and her hidden genes. And also, to Mikoto's shock, the reason behind her inner pain from within her body. It was explained to Mikoto's growing shock and Kushina's surprise that her demonic blood was forcing itself out due to Akemi's Yaokai always being near Mikoto, thus sparking up the Yaokai blood within her. After hearing everything, Kushina did exactly what Naruto thought she would do. Flashback. Sugoi. That's so cool, so Mikoto-chan's like Akemi-chan. That is so amazing. Databang. shouted the obviously excited Kushina, her mouth formed into a grin so big it looked ready to split her angelical face. And like Naruto had anticipated, she was hugging the shocked Mikoto. It was turning blue. Kushi-chan, let go of Mikoto-san, she's turning blue, no, now purple, said Uzumaki, blinked dumbly before looking back at Mikoto, only for her eyes to widen comically, before quickly letting go of Mikoto, who at that moment fell on the floor, greedily gasping for the oh so precious oxygen. She loved Kushina, yes, but the woman had the strength of a titan when she was excited. Omen Miko-chan, guess I got a bit too excited TTEBANE, she said with a sheepish grin, to which Mikoto just smiled. Watching this, Naruto was watching with amusement clear in his usual impassive eyes. Truly it was an amusing sight even in such a situation. Kushina was always able to lift up the tense atmosphere that invaded them. No matter how small or big, Kushina always had that ability to lift the spirits of those that were around here. That's one he loves about Kushina, and a reason for how he fell for her in the first place. Though when she's pissed or angry even he wouldn't get in her way. Akemi through it all was smiling, she always found her container's attitude adorable, since it reminded her much of a newborn kid's attitude. Though the two went back to normal afterwards after seeing the serious atmosphere returning once more and stronger than ever. Letting out a small gulp, Mikoto spoke, okay, so if that's the case I won't deny I've been getting pains in my body like something was forcing it to shift and churn, I don't know why, but if this is the reason I want it to stop by any means necessary, she said to the three, a tone they have grown accustomed to but one that Naruto approved of all the more. It was a tone of complete dead set determination, that of which could not and never will be broken. Honestly, Naruto could tell Mikoto had a strong will not many could even meet or even begin to hope to match with. He had to say, Mikoto was an interesting woman for sure, but that did not mean he wasn't suspicious of her because he was only slightly. It's just that he had come to admire Mikoto's determination and will since it was like Kushina's really. A good answer, Mikoto. Though on the outside he showed no difference except the approval in his eyes showing, very well then, Akemi will be the one to awaken your blood, so I want you to follow whatever she says till it's done, understood? To which he got a quick nod. Seeing this, he turned his attention toward Akemi and nodded. Then let's begin, Akemi, if you want to nod before walking up to Mikoto. After doing so, Akemi spoke with a smile of her own, which somehow eased some of Mikoto's inner worries. She watched as Akemi placed her right hand on her forehead before speaking. Don't worry, Mikoto-chan, this won't hurt a bit, though I do have to say, things will be different when you notice the changes, she said with a smirk, making Mikoto quirk an eyebrow. What do you mean by changeess? Mikoto said, only to pass out from the sudden overload of yakai shrouding her body which was coming from Akemi and her outstretched hand. She quietly looked at the passed out Mikoto before looking back at Naruto, only to see him give her a nod, and Kushina smiled in gratitude. Seeing this, she continued. Alright, here we go, Akuma no Majiku. Akuma no Kai no, demon magic awakening of demon blood. With that, Akemi focused her yakai into Mikoto further, only this time, it seeping within her and targeting the hidden Akami blood with her. The technique she used was something only she knew, it was used like it was made out to be. It targeted one's inner genes even to the watered down versions and literally awoke from within them. So when using this, Mikoto's hidden heritage would be awoken, destroying all that made her human. Suddenly, without warning, a pressure of a non-existent gravity slammed down on them all, but to Naruto, Akemi, and Kushina, it wasn't anything they haven't felt before. I mean, one who has faced and beaten Bijuu and another that was practically Bijuu and queen of the Kitsune will make you immune to such pressure. Well, Kushina was the container to Akemi and pretty much immune to it as well. This pressure was coming from Mikoto, her form now having an outline of pure darkness. The pitchest of black surrounded her body and it seemed to grow more and more with each passing second. The pressure got higher and higher, further surprising Akemi on the inside. Soon enough, the black yakai surrounded Mikoto fully in a humanoid cocoon. Yet through it all the three watching occupants said nothing but watched on, one curious, another interested, and the last worried with excitement swelling in her body. It took only a few minutes, but soon enough the pressure lowered completely till it was like it wasn't even there before the cocoon started to crack with white lines appearing. No one breathed for a moment, that is until the cracks started to appear more and more until it came to the point the cocoon was surrounded with these visible cracks. And with that, the cocoon suddenly started to disappear as it flaked off like old paint before the flakes disappeared into practically nothing. Thus, this left behind the new Mikoto. She wasn't all that changed except for a few things. Which were, like Akemi said, she now had a few animalistic features to her body. There are two pairs of black randomly twitching wolf ears, but to Akemi's shock, 4 wolf tails upon her backside. That wasn't the only thing her canines were able to see, showing they were much longer than before as the nails on her hands became longer and sharper like claws. All in all though, Mikoto didn't change that much. Akemi's eyes were slightly wide, as were Naruto's own, but they were having similar thoughts running through their minds at what they were seeing before them. "Oh my Kami, she already has 4 tails," was Akemi's thought. 4 tails, impressive, very impressive, was Naruto's thoughts on the matter. Kushina's reaction though was the most expected. "Kawaii," was her shout that awoke Mikoto groggily. Before she felt a weight smash into her, she would have looked to see who it was. Before she felt this person doing something that sent shivers down her spine, and not being able to restrain herself, let out a moan of approval. This got both Akemi and Naruto's attention, so when they looked at Mikoto they saw to their immense amusement, Kushina laying upon Mikoto's back grinning childishly while she scratched Mikoto's new appendages. She was like a child in a candy store really, seeing her giddy excited expression, and her wide gleaming violet eyes sent Akemi into a state giggling as Naruto just smirked at the display. "Well, things are gonna get a lot more interesting that I can tell." And oh how right he was. Flashback end. Ever since then, Mikoto was shown the ropes of what she was by Akemi, who has known about her kind the longest. Which took a day or two, but Mikoto was getting the hang of her new body and had already learned by Akemi how to transform, but didn't dare do so, lest she destroy the very ship they stood upon. That didn't mean she wasn't able to transform into smaller versions of herself, which Akemi taught her, which was her being able to transform into a one-tailed cub. Which earned her a death hug from Kushina. Though that wasn't the only thing, for Mikoto also learned from Akemi what the Akami specialized in and helped her learn the ways of controlling her elements, which were both the darkness element and hellfire, yet to Akemi's shock was her affinity in both elements extremely high. More so than she's seen with other demons from Makai and even some demon lords as well. That was why Akemi started helping her control the elements, which at first started to out to be both incredibly hard to do so, but also very destructive. It was one time where Mikoto slipped with her control, and thus part of the ocean was completely turned into a giant crater with water still filling it. It was the crater's size though that was the problem. Because it was the size of the Uchiha. From then on, Naruto made sure that Mikoto's control was at its peak, even if he had to improvise with the exercises to control her elements. He wasn't gonna have the ship destroyed like part of the ocean was. No, he certainly was not. But during those past 2 days, Mikoto has been acting differently than before, or maybe it was something else. Which it was when both Kushina and Akemi could see that Mikoto was being much more affectionate toward Naruto. Akemi theorized that Mikoto's budding feelings for him grew ever so much more tremendously through her transformation. Making her more courageous around Naruto than ever before. This earned Kushina's smile, knowing Mikoto would finally be showing how determined she was to her captain and Naruto as well. But things also happened because on the 9th day of their voyage during Mikoto's training, did the oddly silent Kushina wish to speak with Akemi about something that was very important, that it was so serious she didn't want to tell Naruto or Mikoto about it, and that's saying something if Naruto wasn't told. But she spoke to Akemi about though changed her life forever. Flashback. "Okay Kushi-chan, what's wrong? You've been acting strange lately, so tell me what's up?" questioned the worried Kitsune. She and Kushina were standing inside a room with Akemi standing in front of Kushina, with said woman sitting on the edge of her bed with an obvious look of nervousness. Honestly, it confused Akemi a bit, but she decided to see what was wrong with her former container. Taking a deep breath, Kushina looked up at Akemi, showing her nervous violet eyes. "Well, it's just that Akemi-chan, you know about me, as long as I've known you, I mean I like to think of ourselves as sisters really, and I won't lie to you, since you would be able to tell if I was or not." Akemi nodded with this, while inwardly Kushina's words touched her heart. Truly Kushina thought of them as sisters, and she agreed. They were honestly sisters in everything. Except blood though, she idly thought. That's why after thinking about my life, my battles, my experiences and everything, compared to what Naruto-kun has faced, it shows that everything I've done can't even compare. Everything from when I was a child to now, Naruto-kun has always been there protecting me, training, and fighting to keep our clan safe. Even now, he fights enemies that are far stronger than I could comprehend, Kushina further said, as tears started to build up in her beautiful violet eyes, yet she refused to let them fall. Akemi looked at Kushina with a sad expression. Kushina, she started, only to be interrupted when said woman just looked at her with an expression that practically made Akemi let out a small gasp. It was a pleading expression that was so fierce, so deep that it truly made such a hit into Akemi's heart that it hurt her so. The kitsune could only watch while suppressing the urge to hug Kushina right there, telling her it was okay. But that would be wrong. Kushina had no. She needed to finish what she was gonna say. "That's why Akemi-chan, if there was any way, I mean is there any possible way I can become a demon as well? I know this is a serious question, but Akemi-chan, like I told you before, Akemi-chan is like a sister to me and I want to be able to fight, become stronger than I already am." I don't know why, but I feel like we'll be having many more battles ahead of us, even if we left the elemental nations to get away from fighting. I just have this feeling we'll be going into another life full of fighting, and this time Akemi-chan, Kushina's voice becoming more and more determined that it shocked the already surprised Akemi. Oh, when Kushina looked her in the eyes, the Kitsune Queen couldn't hold back a smile when she saw the once lovable violet orbs, now them being a pair of violet determined gems that seemed to be unable to fall, unable to lose, and most of all, they let off a pure unbreakable and indestructible resolve, that of which Akemi has only seen in one other person. That being Naruto. They're more alike than they realize. Shaking her head, Akemi stared down Kushina with an emotionless gaze. They portrayed not a hint of what was going through her head, as a tense silence followed through until Akemi spoke. I see, are you absolutely certain of what you are asking? Are you truly willing to become a demon so you can fight by Naruto-kun's side and completely throw away your humanity? Because if you do, there is no turning back. Her words cold as ice and hard as the strongest metal. Her crimson-slitted eyes staring at Kushina with not an ounce of any emotion. Only to Akemi's utter shock yet immense happiness that brought a tear to her eye, as Kushina not only glared into her eyes with her own determined ones, she literally stood right in front of Takemi staring at her without a hint of hesitation or fear. The intensity that was in her eyes only strengthened beyond what was there before. Honestly, it was like Akemi was staring right into the very eyes of Naruto himself. Soon enough though, Kushina spoke with not a single shred of both hesitation nor fear of what she was asking. Akemi-chan, I told you I will do anything, and I meant it. I want to fight by his side, and no longer having the look at his back. As he fights, I want to be there by his side. I told you once, and I will tell you again if I must. I am willing to throw my humanity to fight alongside him. She finished standing tall before Akemi with her stare firmly in place, with no sign of breaking nor shattering under the Kitsune Queen's own crimson ones. After seeing Kushina standing there completely straight and hearing her words over and over again within her mind, did Akemi finally break from her emotionless stature to a more sisterly one, which surprised Kushina even more so when they slowly walked up to her and brought the younger woman into a hug. Too surprised was she, did Kushina not see the tears spilling from Akemi's eyes, nor the red glow coming from her. Kushi-chan, you have no idea how glad I'm hear you say those words, to hear you think of me like a sister, even if you're foolish to think you're useless, because you're not, you're anything but that. You are the one that drives Naruto-kun so far to do what he has done. You are the sole reason why he's done what he's done. But I won't disagree with you, for some of what you say is true, she said, rearing her head back to look into Kushina's shocked violet orbs. There are always gonna be battles we all face, whether they be physical, mental or emotional, they will always be there. No matter where we go, there will always be enemies to fight, no matter how small or big they will be there. But then again, what fun is life without a little excitement, eh? She said with a smirk, making Kushina giggle at. But if you are truly wanting to do this to become a demon, then I know of one way that would do it, and also trailing off with a smirk, did Akemi lean down toward Kushina before their noses were practically touching. Her smirk now turned into a vulpine kitsune grin that made Kushina blink dumbly at. That will also finalize us as true sisters. When I do this, we will be true-blooded sisters. This made Kushina's eyes widen ever so greatly that they threatened to pop out of their respective sockets. She couldn't believe what she just heard yet, even now the words echoed within her ears like a sounding horn. She just stood there staring at Akemi with a blank expression. Before her face broke into such a grin that it slightly unnerved Akemi, as her violet orbs swelled up and both shedding tears and excitement. Akemi knew that one of Kushina's small dreams was for her to be a true sister to her, not like they were now, but true sisters. Siblings of the same blood and flesh. Hell, they looked like twins already, but that was just an appearance. Well, except for the eyes, of course. Really? Akemi just nodded, confirming it completely with that. Kushina let it loose. Thank you, Akemi-ni-chan. Thank you, Dadabane, she shouted jovially with her arms wrapped firmly around said Kitsune Queen, who at the moment was smiling at both Kushina's reaction and when she called her ni-chan. Alright, you're welcome, but I need you to stop twirling me around so I can perform the technique, so please put me down and stand still. This is gonna be a very delicate procedure. Hearing the serious tone in her voice, Kushina quickly let go of Akemi and stood stock still. Seeing this, they let loose a small smile before patting Kushina on the shoulder. I see you're ready, or maybe excited to get started. Either way, do not move while I do this, okay? She got a nod from the red-headed Uzumaki. Her grin still in place made Akemi shake her head even more with an amused smile before she stood up straight, her crimson-slitted eyes gaining a more serious glint. She watched when Akemi both her palms with her claws before mumbling words she couldn't even begin to pronounce, but it oddly sounded like she was speaking an incantation of some sort. After a minute or so, Akemi stopped her incantation before she spoke. Okay, here we go. Kitsune Majiku. Kitsune Rinakaru Tenzum, Kitsune Magic. Kitsune renewal transfer. With that, Akemi slammed her hands on the floor before, to Kushina's amazement, the blood didn't splatter, but it started to form around her in a unique designed circle that looked oddly like a design. She didn't have time to further examine, for the blood designed circle seemed to glow before it outright erupted in a crimson light that surrounded the startled yet still standing Kushina. She watched fascinated as the crimson blood red glow seemed to get brighter and brighter before suddenly she felt herself becoming a bit drowsy. She never noticed the blood circle slowly swirl out a figure as the crimson glow intermingled with the blood, giving it a demonic crimson glow. Slowly the blood swirled around Kushina's drowsy figure before it stopped completely. Then without warning it shot up over Kushina's body from head to toe before it slowly traveled into Kushina's mouth, yet she didn't respond to it or the taste. All she did was stand there with a drowsy expression. The blood quickly traversed into her mouth and through body, entering every vein, artery, and every other organ. That is when the blood, when it was fully inside Kushina, did. She suddenly glows pure white in a blinding light so strong it made even Akemi shut her eyes from the blinding light, yet through it all a smile crept up onto her beautiful face. Now Kushi-chan is truly my sister. When she felt the light go down, did she slowly open her eyes to see a sight Akemi smiled greatly at. For it was her former container, now turned blood sister, laying on the wooden floor, and like Makoto a few changes to her appearance, but not so much. Her body was more lean yet slim, but the sign of muscle within showed her body was built for extreme speeds that none could decipher. Her long maroon blood red hair now sprawled out on the floor, and her bangs covering her sleeping face, only her hair looking more like the finest of silk and the greatest of fur. Overall she didn't look the least bit changed. Except for her extra appendages. Them being to Akemi's light shock, which soon turned to extreme pride when two crimson furry fox ears sat upon her head instead of where her human ears used to be, which they twitched ever so randomly, as did her nose, making her look ever so adorable. Her canines are longer than usual, and her nails now sport claws much like Makoto. But what made Akemi feel so proud is what was flowing on Kushina's backside just an inch from her butt. That being 5 flowing 6 feet in length crimson fluffy fox tails. Oh my kami, 5 tails already. Maiko-chan was a surprise, but this, hey, you really are unpredictable, Kushina-chan. Then again, that's to be expected from my little sister. Akemi let loose a giggle of amusement that didn't seem to wake the sleeping newly turned Kitsune Uzumaki Kushina. Slowly Akemi walked up to her new sister before gently picking up her frame, before laying her down in her bed, before covering her up. That is when she laid a small kiss on Kushina's forehead, getting a small grumble from the sleeping redhead, making Akemi smirk. Narukan, she mumbled with a small pink hue rising to her face. It took everything Akemi had to not burst into laughter. She had a slight idea of what Kushina was dreaming of, and she could only say. The Kitsune genes were already affecting her deeply. Letting out a sigh, Akemi took one more look toward Kushina before walking toward the door, opening it before closing it behind her. Once she was outside though, did Akemi let out a sigh before a small smile grew upon her face. "How long have you been there?" she said, looking to her left to see Kushina and Makoto's Captain Uzumaki TheDemonKingNaruto leaning against the wall. His hair shadowed his eyes, which did not reveal anything that might be raging in his golden orbs. Though seeing as his body stance was tense, it showed he had been there for a while. From the beginning he answered by making Akemi close her eyes, knowing he heard Kushina's words. She looked toward him to see he hadn't moved from his spot, making her quirk an eyebrow in curiosity. That is before he spoke once more. "Akemi-chan, now that Kushi-hime has taken this path, as did Makoto-san, I want you to do everything you can to help train them in their powers, for I have a feeling we're gonna end up in a very hostile life. One that needs all of us ready to fight. We all need to be ready for the oncoming storm that's ahead of us," he spoke, to which Akemi just gave a nod signifying she understood. Seeing this he continued. "But then go get some rest now, Akemi-chan. Training for the 2 starts tomorrow." Finishing his explanation, Akemi nodded before walking past him. "Hey little vixen." Suddenly out of nowhere Naruto's eyes widened in both confusement but also pain before his hand suddenly lashed out to hold himself against the wall as the other went to his mouth. Cough cough. Looking at his hand that he coughed into, his eyes widened slightly when he saw blood of all things. Scowling, he clenched his bloodied hand. Letting out a silent curse did he continue on, showing no other outward difference than usual, but on the inside was different. "Damn it, what's wrong with me?" Flashback end. After that day, many things followed. For instance, Akemi stuck to her promise and started to train both Makoto and Kushina heavily in their new demonic powers. Teaching them to further control their new energy source of Yaokai that was just like chakra, only demonic and 100x denser and stronger than normal chakra. She trained them both physically and mentally in the powers, helping them get used to their new appendages so they could get used to them and use them in battle. Sure, Kushina had a hard time walking around like Makoto did at first when she was turned, as well. Despite that though, Kushina oddly got the hang of it rather quickly, and even more so was able to use her tails like it was second nature, as did Makoto. Akemi explained that since Kushina had been her former container she was already part kitsune, thus she was able to get used to her tails rather quickly, while Makoto had training early on even if it was just a few days. Kushina also to Akemi's surprise, was able to morph quite easily into her one-tailed kit state like she did but, then again, Kushina was her former container thus again, anything a kitsune does would come naturally to her. Thus the two continued their training with Akemi watching over them, correcting their mistakes, and improving on them, and their strengths. She explained to Kushina that like Makoto her natural abilities had just gone through the roof, making her all the more deadlier than before. She had also said like her the Akami demons, and which specialized in their elements, did the kitsune specialize in their own. That being the first one Kitsune High, Foxfire, which Akemi said was able to not only to tear through Ninjenkai's human world, magma like butter, and make it look like warm water in comparison to heat, it also was even up to part with the flames of hellfire themselves. It was also used as a self-sufficient body armor that Akemi only knew of. The woman taught her new sister how to do this by manipulating the flames over her body, forming an armor of sorts that both protects you from any and all elements of fire, water or ice. That wasn't the only thing though, for she also taught her how to manipulate the flames and bend it to her will to create weapons ranging from swords to katanas and kunais to shuriken. Though that wasn't the only thing she worked on during the night, Akemi had her and Makoto meditated, making them further their control in their yokai so they could strengthen their powers. She also had them further strengthening their physical prowess seeing as they were physically fit yes, but to Akemi's standards they looked pathetic. She had them doing exercises that would make Mido Guy himself cry in both pain and fear before running back to the warm presence of his mother. That's how extreme it was. Due to both Kushina and Makoto being demons, their bodies were much stronger and durable to handle than humans could ever hope to have. That was why the training Akemi put them through didn't turn them into a puddle of mush by the end of each day. Because Akemi had them doing exercises like running laps around the deck doing 100 laps, 50 push-ups, 30 pull-ups, 50 sit-ups with weights attached to their bodies. But these weren't normal weights, oh no, they were yokai-induced weights that looked normal weights on the outside, but truly they each had enough weight to shatter a human's body into nothing but dust. For example, on their arms their weights were both 5 tons for both arms. On their legs was 10 tons for both legs, with the one more weight on their waist, acting as a belt which weighed to around 15 tons. Together added with their total added weight that was 90 tons equaling to 90,000 pounds. Good thing Naruto had self-restraining and strengthened seas on the ship or those two would have fallen through long ago. So you can say by the end of their first day of training both Kushina and Makoto were flat out on the deck, cursing the laughing Akemi, calling her the slave driver of Makai. It only got worse for the two when Akemi said she would be increasing the weights by the beginning of each week. This continued on for a few days until the 10th day of their voyage appeared, but by then during their training, the girls had noticed something. That being Naruto, he was acting himself. Yes, it was just that he looked to be struggling with something like he was in some sort of pain similar to Makoto's only worse. They first suspected this when Makoto caught him coughing uncontrollably in his room when the door was slightly open. Then another sign was him becoming more pale each passing day making him look more deathly ill. Yet another sign that he was sweating more and more even during the strange cold day they had he still looked to be burning up. When asked if he was okay he just waved it off that he was fine. But Akemi knew otherwise for she was sensing something from Naruto and it was no sickness. It was something else entirely. She didn't know what it was, but it truly scared her, the Kitsune queen and leader of the Bijuu. She didn't know what it was, but she knew it was powerful, but also old. It was so old. What she was feeling from Naruto was some ancient power that she couldn't even begin to describe honestly when she first felt it. It was like she was suddenly tossed into a giant hurricane with her being in the eye of it. Pure power is what she felt, it made her feel like a newborn kiting that was just brought into existence. This power dwarfed her own tremendously and made even the Kyuubi's own pale in comparison. Whatever this thing was that was affecting Naruto though it was killing him that she could tell just by looking at him. It finally got the point where it got all of their attention. It was on the 13th day of their voyage. The day that changed everything for one Uzumaki D. Naruto. Flashback. Standing on the deck of their caravel was one Uzumaki D. Naruto, only he looked more pale than usual, deathly pale actually. His eyes bloodshot from what none could say, as sweat poured from him like a river. Even through this he looked unfazed as he watched the girls train in their new powers. It was a sight to see really, and he couldn't help but feel proud of them and grateful to Akemi for training them. Though he had to scowl mentally when he felt the state he was in, he didn't know what it was but lately he could feel himself getting weaker and weaker. Yet he could still feel something more happening, but he just couldn't figure it out. As far as he's known, he hasn't been sick not once because of his abnormal healing that was on par with Kyuubi's own. So then what was happening to him? Boo bump. Grasping the wooden railing, Naruto let loose a grunt as he felt it coming once more. It happened every day randomly, a spasm of pain from his heart. Tightening his grip, Naruto fell to his first knee. He couldn't see horrified expressions from the women or their screams for him, screaming out his name in worry. All he could do grip the place where his heart was before he gasped yet again. Boo bump, boo bump. Cough, cough. Ugh. He grunted as he couldn't catch it in time as his blood flew out of his mouth in a painful hiss. He didn't know what was going on, but now this agonizing pain just got worse. He didn't know, but it was like he'd just been stabbed in the heart with a drenched poison dagger. He gripped the rail so tight it cracked before exploding in nothing but splinters. Naruto couldn't feel anything any longer. He realized he was losing his senses. His sight, smell, hearing, everything. He didn't even feel the three women racing up to him nor see their terrified expressions. All he could feel was the immense pain in his heart. The coppery taste of his blood on his tongue as his limbs trembled and shook. He couldn't see it, but he was slowly coming a thought that made his very soul scream in denial. Am I? The very thought made him want to scream and roar in denial. He couldn't die now, he had Kushina again, they were just starting their lives together. No, he absolutely refused to die. Not with some damned sickness. I won't die from this pathetic disease. No, I refuse, no, I won't die, damn it. He let a hoarse gasp as blood once more flew from his mouth, only this time with his eyes now opened halfway. Did he see the blood not hit the wooden floor, but it splattered against the horrified face of Kushina? He would have smiled and told it was okay, he would have wiped her shedding tears away if he could move his hand, he would have kissed her to show he was okay. Yet he couldn't because all he could do was fall to his other knee, and without being able to grasp anything, did he start to fall forward. He idly noted his eyes closing despite his inner struggle to keep them open, for he knew if he closed them, he knew if his eyes closed, they may never open again. He didn't feel the impact of him falling to the deck, nor could he feel the blood pooling from his mouth now unrestrained like it's been for days. He could hear his heart start to slow down and feel himself getting colder and colder each second. All he could do was shift his gaze toward the three women, and it pained him to see their horrified faces. Their terror-filled eyes made him want to relieve them of their fear. Show them he wasn't gonna die. Yet he couldn't even do that. He felt so weak. So helpless. So defenseless. Was this how his father felt before when he was surrounded? Seeing Kushina's violet orbs now letting tears fall from her eyes, did gather up every ounce of what strength and sheer willpower did he have left. Did Naruto raise his hand, which gained her attention, which she immediately grasped his hand and pulled at her to face where it was cupping her tear-streaked cheek. Naruto could only gaze into her eyes as the darkness started to overcome his vision. He could see Akemi doing everything she could to heal him using whatever yokai healing technique she knew, as was Mikoto, but he honestly thought it was to no prevail. It probably was. Naruto-kunji, get up, you're okay, see, come on, she uttered. He could see her mouth moving, yet heard not a word, showing his hearing gone as well. He just smiled, which was all he could really do. The blood leaking from his mouth gathering up in his smile. This smile worried Kushina very much, so she couldn't wave off the feeling of dread building up in her stomach. Her eyes widened in horror when his eyes slowly started to close, while she desperately tried to keep him awake. Naruto-kun. Keep your eyes open. Damn it. Stay awake. She yelled, practically doing everything she could. Yet it proved to no avail, for he just couldn't stop his eyes from dropping, no matter how much he struggled. Damn it, is this how I'm gonna die? By a damn disease. Damn it, I refuse to die, I fucking refuse to do so. I won't die here. And you won't, young one. Naruto mentally only had time to quirk a mental eyebrow before he completely lost consciousness, further worrying the three women. He never felt himself being carried by Akemi and into his room, for all he saw were the flash of Kushina's eyes, before all he saw was darkness. And nothing. Naruto's mindscape. Darkness. That's all he could see, all he could feel was himself floating, touching nothing solid and floating on nothing but air. Slowly opening his eyes, did Naruto see himself standing on practically nothing, which really didn't surprise him since he had a small idea of where he was. He looked around himself to see nothing but the darkness of an empty void that he felt could suck up any and all living things. As he silently gazed at the surrounding area, he never saw a dark portal appearing behind him, with it walking out a figure as tall as he was, maybe a few inches or so. Welcome, child. Hearing this somewhat distorted yet baritone voice, did Naruto quickly spin around his stance, tense and guarded. Only for his eyes to widen partially when he saw the man in front of him. His mere presence honestly shook him to his very core, yet he did sense something about this person that made him feel a wave of familiarity. For he was staring at a man that stood the same height as himself or maybe a few inches taller, and he seemed to have some of the same armor as himself, but not all the same. He had a very built stature that he could tell very easily, but other than that, everything else about the man was strange. For he was mostly covered in armor from his giant legs and feet, with them covered in leather boots with metal greaves that seemed to work like his own. Only these were strapped to the man's legs. Around his waist was some sort of belt that had two protrusions of bronze metal, one extending upward to his chest and the other downwards. In this belt was red leather straps with two of them dangling from his waist. On his chest was, from what he could tell, a tight black shirt of some sort that showed his massive muscled chest. Next up was the man's arms. The right one, to his surprise, has the same pauldron as his own, it being silver in color and the same demonic design, and below it on his forearms and hand was a strangely designed gauntlet with metal clawed fingers. On his left arm though is what really got him, for his part of his arm was covered by the crimson slightly burned red cowl, while below this showed something that truly made Naruto wonder who this man was. For it was a gauntlet of such size he wondered if it was made by demons themselves. For it was a gauntlet that had unique designs that looked too alien to Naruto to be human, plus the crimson glow coming from the designs only strengthened his suspicions. These designs went straight toward a skull of some sort which glowed yellow, as its eye sockets glowed blood red. Finally, ending with the man's appearance was the strangely designed bronze pauldron on his left shoulder that seemed to look sort of like a bat's wing. Under this connection with the crimson burned cowl was the rest of it, covering the man's upper chest, collarbone, his mid-back, and head, completely shadowing what was seen of his hair. That in itself being strange, for his hair was a complete white with a light bluish tint. His skin tone, from what he could see, was tan, very much so borderline bronze, and from what Naruto could see was some kind of mark on the man's forehead, with it glowing with crimson lines that reminded him of runes. Lastly was the man's eyes. They froze him on the spot, for they just radiated so much power, wisdom yet control that it made Naruto wonder if this man was some kind of deity. His eyes were utterly and complete azure. It was like staring into twin pools of the deepest ocean. Oddly, he felt these eyes were similar to his own when he was younger. Naruto couldn't help but feel like he's known this person from somewhere, yet he doesn't. Does he? The man seemed to notice his questioning yet curious eyes and spoke with a voice so filled with both divine yet demonic power that it sent a chill up his spine, but there wasn't ill intent toward him at all, only something akin to curiosity mixed with something akin to pride. Young one, I'm sure you have many questions and I will answer them, but first we have much to talk about, which includes yourself and the situation you're in, and with it involves myself and your birth mother. Naruto's eyes almost popped out of his head when he heard this, but stayed silent as the man continued. First off, let me introduce myself. I am the second horseman of the four horsemen, with me being the youngest. My name is War, and we Uzumaki D. Naruto have much to discuss. Naruto just glared back at him, wondering how he knew his name. Very well then, talk. But that the man now revealed, War spoke. Real world. Is he gonna be okay, Akemi-chan? Said a teary-eyed Kushina as she and Makoto were kneeling at the bedside as Akemi sat by Naruto, her hands glowing a greenish hue with a red tint. They had seen Naruto start coughing when he was first seen gripping the railing and only got more worried when fell to his knee. That's when they rushed to see him, only to see his state getting worse and worse. They tried to get his attention, yet he didn't respond, making their fears for his very life were on the line. That was when Akemi quickly picked up his body and shot toward his room, with them following to help quell down what his pain was. Which was why at the moment Naruto was laying on his bed with sheets covering him with a wet folded towel to cool his scorching fever. They were surprised to see blood though when he coughed every so often, especially when he had fallen to the deck. It honestly scared them. Of course they had their suspicions, but now seeing it real, they could see Naruto was truly in serious life-threatening pain. The questions though piled up in their minds as to what this disease was, what was it doing to Naruto, how did he get in the first place? But the most important question was, why didn't he tell them what was wrong with him? Sighing, Akemi stopped her healing before speaking with a small frown. I'm honestly not sure, Kushina-chan. At first Naruto's heart was fine this morning, but now it's just plain chaotic. It's unnatural beats are what's worrying me. At one point his heart beat so fast I'm afraid it's gonna shoot out of his chest, and the other is when he just stops beating utterly and completely. I don't know what's wrong with him, all I know is that's affecting him and making his blood slowly fill up in his lungs. It's been, from what I can see, been happening frequently and for a while now. I can also sense something else in him is affecting his body in general, causing his eyes to have been so bloodshot they looked ready to bleed out tears, and his abnormal fever, she explained, a worried frown on her face as she gazed back down on the man she had come even closer to loving. Kushina could only nod her head before looking back at Naruto's body, seeing his chest raising up and down irregularly scared her, as well as the pained expression on her face. Looking toward Makoto, she saw the woman almost ready to bawl her eyes out, yet she held her tears back, not wanting to show weakness before any of them. She felt the same way, but was used to seeing Naruto in these situations. That didn't mean she wasn't worried, far from it actually. Because she was feeling absolutely broken without him here. She couldn't honestly even begin to imagine her life without him here. It was a terrifying thought that she had immediately crushed. She knew Naruto, and he wouldn't die so easily. For he was just tough to kill, he's slaughtered armies, faced and beaten cages that could level a village, and, he being the only man on this planet that she knew that is faced and beaten with only his strength alone. He won't die, and he certainly won't be killed by some pathetic little disease. I know he'll come out of this, I know he will, were her thoughts on the one she loved, that is, before she pulled Makoto into a hug, seeing the woman take it quickly and press her face into her shoulder. She rubbed Makoto's back trying to soothe her, while she herself was still trying to hold back the tears in her eyes. Despite knowing he would come out okay in the end. It was still so heart-wrenching to see him in such pain. Akemi, though, like Kushina, knew Naruto was gonna be okay, yet she was more concerned about the energy within Naruto. His chakra was now by no means chakra at all, for it was shifting and morphing in a way. She didn't know what it was, but knew one thing, that his chakra was now changing completely from human chakras and to a more demonic feel to it. Though what was even stranger was his chakra was also giving off feels of divine as well, so that confused her even more, but what was really worrying her was that his energy was growing rapidly beyond what a human body could hold. She was guessing that was what is wrong with him, but she couldn't be completely sure. All she could tell was that his energy was rapidly increasing. What was scary though was that his energy was already surpassed hers by far. What's happening to you, Naru-kun? Well, all three of them are about to find out. Because unknown to them all was that Naruto's body was giving off a crimson-black streaked outline. Naruto's mindscape. I see, so you're telling me you're a being called the Nephilim, with it being an old race that existed before angels or demons. Them being called the Old Ones, yet after a cataclysmic war only 4 of you remained, them being called the Four Horsemen, them being named Fury, Strife, Death, and finally you, War. But you 4 served this organization called the Chart Council, as your original goal is to protect all of mankind. Before the council made you all only come in to protect them when these 7 seals broke, thus the war of the apocalypse would begin when all 7 broke. And you told me later on you were tricked by the council to arrive right before the 7th seal was broken, thus shattering the ironclad rule, and you were stripped of your powers. Afterwards you fought a one-man war through both demons and angels, finding out the council had framed you. So after you defeated this Abaddon and took the 7th seal before shattering it, you waged war with the council with your siblings. This war brought upon the end war, ravaging the planet and all its inhabitants. That is, after you and the other horsemen won, you left for the White City known as Heaven. There you had a council with the higher-ups of Heaven, asking for a meeting with this Maker, the ultimate entity that created everything known to mankind, demon and angel-wise. You asked him to recreate the planet and have it begin anew with a more stable mindset. After this, you and the rest of your siblings lived a life of solitude as the mediators between heaven and hell. Is that correct? Naruto said as he floated before War, his eyes staring into the twin pools of liquid sapphire. The man gave a nod of confirmation with a faraway look in his eyes. Yes, every word of it is the complete truth, to which Naruto could see the man was telling the truth, for even if the man's eyes were impassive, as ever, each word was filled with the utmost honesty that he couldn't help but believe in. But I see, but what does this have to do with you, me, or my current situation, or for that matter, how does this involve my mother? He said, utterly confused. War anticipated this, to where he just spoke to Naruto once more, only this time something akin to sadness in his tone. Yes, well, let me start from the beginning. For you do remember the woman named Uriel, correct? Which Naruto nodded. He remembered how War explained of the woman. Her being the champion of heaven and its commander of the angel forces. He idly noted during his explanation of her that War seemed to drift off a bit in his words. Yes, I remember her, but what does she have to do with anything? Which War just let out what seemed to be a sigh, but sounded more like a grunt. Well, she is the whole reason. For you see, during my time in solitude I met Uriel once more, and that was when she had requested a duel against me again, only this time not out of petty vengeance or spite, but out of wanting to see who was stronger. She was strong. Stronger than any other I've ever fought, especially with how she grew stronger and stronger through the war. Our battle shook our very realm and scared my other siblings. Even my older brother Death saw the fight as both entertaining yet chaotic, but I ended up defeating her. I expected her to be angry with me, but to my surprise she was satisfied, you could say, and ever since then we grew closer and closer, to the point we fell in love. We had to keep our relationship a secret, though, for it was forbidden for an angel to love a Nephilim, and doing so with our secret relationship did Uriel end up bringing forth our first and last child. When Naruto heard the last, he could hear both the sadness and anger clear in War's tone as the man's fists clenched tightly. You see, the child was a newborn baby boy, and we loved him and cared for him deeply to the point we couldn't bear being separated for almost a day. Though no matter how good things went, it all ended up crashing down, for a spy from heaven found out about us and told the higher-ups in heaven, and soon word spread to all of heaven, and then my siblings found out. Though unlike my siblings, which had protected us from the forces of heaven, did Uriel and myself see no other choice when we saw the full might of heaven come crashing down on us. We did the only thing we could do, and that was to send our child to earth, knowing heaven hadn't known of his existence. We didn't have time to even name our child before we and Uriel went to join my siblings in the battle against heaven, and this is where in the end we all caused an apocalypse in heaven, thus destroying all of us. We all died, to which the Maker replaced us with new gods and protectors. But not even he, the Maker himself, didn't know me, and Uriel's child was still alive, he further explained, making Naruto's eyes widen, already piecing together what War was telling him. Everyone from the past except for myself passed on, for I lived on as a soul to live in my son to where he had descendants, and I passed on to them, and so on and so forth, but due to my overwhelming power that was within that body, it started to harm them inwardly for my power. Their heritage was leaking, and just a drop of my blood entering their system would either tear a normal human to pieces or give them fast-acting disease that attacks the heart. I see you piecing this together, that's good, he said, seeing the suspecting expression come over Naruto's face. And how does this involve my mother? I don't even know her or my father. How did she survive the disease? To which War gained an expression filled with the utmost sadness, yet a hint of sadness as well. That's easy, because for every descendant we had, they had at least one child before they succumbed to the disease. Though out of every single descendant, your mother was the one person that reminded me so much of Uriel, it was shocking. I can't tell you her name, for even I myself don't know, because the only thing I remember of her is the day she gave birth to you. You see, she had the disease since she was born, but even that didn't stop her, for she fought through it unintentionally or not, her sheer willpower kept her from dying. On the day of your birth, though, from what I can remember, she had kept you in her womb since she was on the run, from what I remember her calling them Marines. Either way, she had given birth to you in the elemental nations. I can tell you this, though, even when she was dying, she loved you dearly, like any mother would have. Even when she was dying, she had the strength to embrace your small form and give you your name before passing on. Truly, your mother was one of a kind, he explained to the wide-eyed Naruto. He couldn't believe what he was hearing, yet it was all true, every single word. War's words were filled with the honest to calm damn truth. No matter how much he wanted to deny it, he couldn't, but when he heard about his mother, he couldn't help but feel a sense of pride of what she did for him during the time he was in her womb. Though when he heard about these Marines chasing her down, where was his birth father? Why wasn't he protecting her? So many unanswered questions rolled into his mind, yet the one thing he did know was that he would get his answers from these Marines, and there will be no denying that. I see, then that would mean getting a nod from the man before he, to Naruto's shock, smiled on his once stony face. This smile, though, just radiated pride, and it was all aimed at him. For reasons unknown, Naruto felt like he was being smiled at by his father Ryu once more. Yes, you are the next descendant, and I gotta say, you've truly taken up my mantle as a warrior of war. From what I could see in your memories, you were the epitome of chaos, carnage, blood, war everywhere you followed. It was such a sight to see. Then again, you did it all for that woman Kushina. She oddly reminds me of both Uriel and your mother, he muttered, to which Naruto just quirked an eyebrow before War shook himself out of his thoughts. Either way, I would suspect you're wondering why we're talking like this, since you think you're dead. Well, let me explain. Unlike everyone else, Naruto was born with some demonic power in you, which was from your father, from what I can assume. Anyway, due to this, the disease was blocked off for a good few years of your life, until it reached the point where you are the age you are now, but due to the age you are now, it's only strengthened the disease farther than ever before, where it's become an instant lethal poison. I can only say you inherited your mother's willpower to survive for how long you have. Even now you're still alive, just in a comatose state, with those three women doing everything they can to keep you alive. Naruto just gained a small smile when he heard this, as the faces of Kushina, Akemi, and Makoto flashed in his eyes. That's when he still remembered the situation he was in, making him scowl. Then, what was the use of telling this to me? What was the use of you explaining everything to me if I'm still gonna die? To which War just let out an amused chuckle before he walked toward Naruto, making him raise an eyebrow in curiosity. Easy, since you're the first one to survive when the disease has evolved to such a degree, and you living, giving me enough time to awaken now gives me the chance to finally awaken to the blood so you could live. For you see, the only way you will live is when I release your mother's, and by extension my, and Uriel's blood will completely and forever flush out the disease forever. Not even your offspring will gain this disease. Though this will also change you from being a human into what I am, or was that being a Nephilim, thus forever changing you? Naruto, knowing this after piecing everything together, nodded. I see, but would that mean I lose my other abilities? This made War shake his head in negative before he outstretched his hand, and to Naruto's surprise, did Chiaotzu appear in a pillar of blue-black streaked flames. He watched as War expertly swung the blade in the air before stabbing it into the non-existent ground, making white cracks appear to his confusion. No, you won't lose any of those abilities, only that your chakra has now changed and strengthened beyond all measure of what anyone could ever guess. You being the first person of a hybrid between a Nephilim and angel, your energy is your own, and no name can be called in history of it. Also, since the blood is gonna be awakened, I'll be passing off my memories of how to use the powers given to you, but don't think for a second you're invincible. You will still need to train and perfect these powers. Naruto nodded at this, knowing nothing ever comes free without a price that he knew. Yes, I know, but if I do this, what will happen to me exactly? To which War closed his eyes in thought before speaking. Truthfully, I have no idea since this has never happened before, but I would say some of my and Uriel's appearance would come into you. Your personality though is your own, only in appearance will you change. Other than that, I can say your overall skills and abilities would skyrocket beyond measure. For instance, your strength right now can topple of both an 8th tail and the 9th tail, but if you do this, your strength will be even beyond that of a titan, making your abilities to shift the very earth, which I got to say is very impressive, will enable you to topple even a nation if you truly tried to do so. Your speed will considerably increase to the point you'll be able to move faster than the speed of light itself, seeing as the only thing that's gonna be taken away is your enormous height, making you stand at the height you're at now. Your muscles will be compacted yet still have the strength and speed you always had. Your sixth senses will also increase, as well as your reflexes to where you can dodge an attack at point blank. Also, I'm gonna be passing off one enhancement of mine that goes along with Chiaotzu. You'll see why later on though. Hearing this, Naruto nodded, seeing War was coming to a close with his explanation. Honestly though, he just wanted to hurry and return back to the living world and reassure the girls he was okay. Lastly is that you cannot die by human, demon or angel wise, for even myself don't know the true extent of your durability, but I can say that if I can take the injuries I've been dealt with, as did Uriel and yourself before this, then I'd say you literally can't die, or it would just take a lot to do so. This made Naruto nod. While on the outside he showed no real emotion, while on the inside he was a bit happy that he would live as long as the girls were. Or seeing the area around them shift showed they didn't have much time. Naruto, hurry, make your choice, either grasp the handle of Chiaotzu and you shall awaken the blood, or Dante and die here, and now it's your choice, but time is running short. Your body is hearing this. Naruto didn't even hesitate, for when he just grasped the handle, did he see War give a chuckle before speaking. I see you made your decision, then be ready for a world of pain. That's all Naruto heard before his vision was blinded by a flash of white and an unimaginable searing pain slam into his body like tsunami of magma. As Naruto disappeared, War slowly closed his eyes as the light hit himself as well, making his body slowly fade away into nothing but blue particles of light. Finally, I can go home. I can see you again, brothers and sisters, and I can see you once more. Uriel-chan. With that, War's body completely disappeared forever, showing the last horseman disappeared, leaving a legacy of himself and his love to roam the earth. Oh, the chaos. Real world. Akemi-chan, are you sure there's nothing more we can do? Mikoto asked, to which Akemi just shook her head sadly. It's already been an hour since Naruto was put to bed, and since then his irregular heartbeat only got worse with each passing minute, while the energy that had built up in him had already, to Akemi's inner shock, surpassed the legendary Kyuubi's own by leaps and bounds, making it look pathetic in comparison. Since then though, Naruto's body began to spasm uncontrollably as blood started to leak from his mouth, nose, ears, and even eyes. That was when his body just stopped, utterly and completely. That was 5 minutes ago. No, there's nothing more I can do, Naruto-kun. She didn't get to finish though, for suddenly out of no was the painful scream ripping from Naruto's mouth. Spinning around did the three girls, see to their utter shock Naruto gripping the sheets, practically tearing them, his eyes scrunched up shut with his mouth open, letting loose a painful scream. His eyes are practically now glowing sapphire, unlike his usual golden eyes. But the one thing that got their attention was the aura coming off him. For it was not only white in color, it was outlined in gold, but streaked with crimson and black, as the aura itself just outlined Naruto's body like a blanket of fire. It spread across him as his scream only got louder and louder, only the fires didn't show a hint of burning him. They hurriedly rushed toward him, only for the flames to lash out at the floor in front of them, making them stop before it hit them. They saw it retract back into the blanket of fire. They could only stare as the flames covered Naruto's lower body and upper chest. Through it all, Akemi was staring at Naruto and the flames covering him with wide eyes. What the hell, I saw him die, but this energy is the same energy I felt coming from Naruto-kun earlier, only this time it's more concentrated, more powerful. What is going on here? That's when she and the other two saw the flames slowly cover up to Naruto's neck. They could only watch lest they get hit by the flames as he let loose one more scream that shook their very ship as the flames completely covered his face. His voice suddenly went silent as the flame blanketed over his face and hair. Soon enough the flaming aura completely surrounded and encased Naruto in its fiery blazing aura of energy and power. The flames strangely enough not burning the sheets or wood. Watching this the three girls could only stare. Uchiha-chan W what is going on? Mikoto said, her eyes stuck on the form of where her captain and precious person was laying. Kushina just nodded trying to think of what was happening to her love. Akemi just looked at them both before letting out a small sigh before glancing back at the flames. Honestly girls, I have no idea what's going on anymore. All I know is that Naruto is alive, but inside those flames something about him is changing. I can feel it. The way she said it made both Kushina and Mikoto audibly gulp before they looked back into the humanoid blanketed flames that held within their love interest. They truly hoped he was okay, for they would have jumped in and tried to get him out, but they had a feeling those flames would do a lot more than just burn them. They all didn't need to wait long though. The sudden beat of a heart somehow sounded the area, making the three girls snap their attention toward Naruto's laying figure, the beating getting louder and faster with each passing second. It only got louder when to their shock did the humanoid blanketed fire move, showing he was sitting up without making a sound. They watched in bated breath as the man in the cloak of fire stood up as the blanket of fire hit any, and all that showed it was Naruto underneath that aura of sheer power. Seeing the person coming closer to them, did they freeze in place when the blanket of fire started to their surprise unraveling around the person in a spinning vortex, slowly showing the person underneath. As it did so did Akemi suddenly feel herself getting even more uneasy than ever before. The godly power coming from this figure was shaking her to her very core. Not even the Kyuubi could match up to this power. She and the other two watched in rapt attention as the fiery aura unraveled from the person's feet and on upward, showing Naruto's armored feet, then legs and waist, only this time wearing some kind of belt. On top it showed the bare muscle chest of Naruto, only his skin tone now a bit more tan than usual and his sickly pale wiped clean. Going up, the flames showed his arms, showing their armored gauntlets and pauldrons, with them being pure silver in color instead of the usual black. On top was a pure crimson hooded cowl that draped over Naruto's chest and back and his shoulders, with a hood completely over his head. That's when the flames fully unraveled showed Naruto's shadowed face. His face set in his usual stone firm expression, with his mouth set in an impassive state, with only his eyes gaining their attention. And what eyes they were! For just those few seconds they were staring into two twin pools of liquid azure that seemed to just glow with an inner power that sent chills up their backs, but even more so made their face practically burn as their cheeks just flushed a good shade of crimson. They could only gape even more when Naruto removed the cowl over his head to show his normal spiky long golden black streaked hair, only this time the ends of his hair having wide ends. And lastly the same ruined crimson mark on his forehead going downward over his eyes, thus making him look even more unique. In their opinion. It vanished though, for soon they vanished, returning to Naruto's normal golden orbs, them now holding an amused look at the girls' expressions. He slowly spread out his arms, even if he was regretting what he was gonna do. Well, you girls just gonna stand there and stare at me? Or you gone? He never got the chance to finish before he was tackled by three blurs, two of them crimson, the other a raven-colored blur. He idly noted himself flying back with three pairs of arms wrapped around his torso and the three female figures pressed against him. Naruto-kun, was the worried shout of the three girls as the four slammed into his bed with them on top of him as his bed sinked further by their combined weight. He looked at them, not caring of the position they were in, and mentally hit himself when he saw their concerned and fearful expressions. Even more so when he saw their tear-streaked cheeks. Letting loose a small smile he spoke, "I'm sorry I worried you girls, I'll explain everything you all deserve to know." With it he surprised them all, especially Akemi and Mikoto, when he wrapped his arms around them all before pulling them closer to him, making them freeze before seeing his caring golden eyes. Did they just snuggle into him awaiting for his explanation? Seeing this he opened his mouth and begun his explanation. Flashback end. And so he did, he explained to them all of what was wrong with him, his heritage, and his meeting with War. He further explained what was causing him to be sick in the first place. Suffice to say the girls were shocked immensely. To hear of all that Naruto went through was just crazy. When they heard about his heritage concerning War, well, let's just say Kushina and Mikoto were placed in a shocked state while Akemi just passed out due to the immense shock. To think a descendant of that man still lived, and that being Naruto, was just too much for even her. Though for the rest of the day the girls never left Naruto's side, for they just stuck to him like glue. Apparently he could see this had worried them all more than they showed, so he didn't say anything about their actions and just went to sleep that day with the girls hugging onto him, forever wanting to know he was still there. He couldn't deny though he had a very good sleep that night. But on the next day things changed, not with the girls or Naruto, but something else, and that was during the girls' routine training along with Naruto's own. He needed to get used to his slightly changed body and powers he had gained from his ancestor war. It was during this time they could finally see an island nearby. With Naruto and the crew. Standing on the deck looking out at the island was a man that stood a good 6'5", with a figure that could be described as both a ripped figure if the extremely ripped chest and 10-pack was anything to go by. That didn't mean his muscles were overly huge, though, for they were compacted, giving him the appearance of a leather figure. This shows his body is built for both speed and strength. His skin tone was that of a tan tone, almost bronze, especially in the sunlight. His face was both well proportioned and masculine, not a hint of baby fat anywhere. He wore black leather boots with silver metal greaves strapped to them. Following up his legs were black cargo pants with silver metal plates strapped to the sides of his legs. Around his waist was a belt that had a strange buckle of some sort which had split in 2 directions. One sheet of golden metal shot straight up from the buckle covering part of the man's chest. As the other piece of metal was more of a protective plate going downward. In the middle of this buckle was red leather straps that were strapped firmly around the man's waist, with 2 of them hanging loosely from the buckle. He had no shirt, which showed his ripped chest and steel hard 10-pack. The only article of clothing seen on his chest was a crimson cowl of sort that's covered the man's upper chest and both his shoulders, while the hood of the cowl completely covered his head, hiding his hair from view and shadowing his face almost completely. Lastly, over his shoulders were metal spaulders, with the right one being silver in color and it having the design of a demon's snarling face within. While the other was more of a giant bat's wing, only this spaulders being pure black in color. On both his forearms were silver gauntlets that had demonic designs etched within, as the metal-plated gloves showed the clawed fingers that seemed like that of a monster's claw. His fists were at ease, but his whole body was tense and ready for the slightest attack. On the man's shoulder was a giant blade that looked to be unworldly in design, with it being as tall as the man himself, maybe a few inches smaller, it being the famed Chaosiator. Finally, though, was the man's soul-piercing golden eyes that seemed to glow from under the shadows of his hood. This man was Uzumaki Naruto, and right now him and the girls were on course to this island, that which they could see was populated, so that means they could finally get information on where they are and get some supplies. "Boy. Naru-kun. We'll be reaching the island in a few more minutes," said a voice from above him, looking up at Kitsune Kemi, who was wearing her same battle-ready kimono as before when he first met her. He gave a small smile before nodding in acceptance. "But we shall deploy the anchor when we reach port and keep a lookout for any other ships," Akemi-chan. She gave a mock salute with a grin before going back to her job. That's what she mainly did on the ship, was be the lookout, since she had the greatest sight of them all. That didn't mean she didn't have her talents, far from it. Because he had seen firsthand of her amazing healing talents, thus he had appointed her as the doctor of the crew. "You know, Naruto-kun, I don't know why, but when I see you looking out at the sea, it's like you were born to be out here," Audebane said, a loving melodic voice from behind him. Looking over his shoulder, did he see the smiling Kushina walking up to his side? She was wearing something akin to a more close combat clothing, yet it still showed her perfect hergless figure. She wore black shinobi sandals with tight-fitting black cargo pants like himself, only they hugged her figure like a second skin, as did her crimson tank top that acted like a second skin, as it showed her well-developed DT-cup bust. Over her shoulders was a long-sleeved crimson trench coat with a Uzumaki swirl embedded on the back of the coat. Lastly was her original katana from the one she used as a child, back when the Uzumaki clan that Naruto had given to her early on strapped her to the hip. Her lovely maroon-red bangs were held back on the left side of her face by a yellow hairpin, showing her heart-shaped face. She had her kitsune tails and ears hidden, since they were about to go into a populated area, and it was best they didn't draw too much attention to themselves. Then again, Naruto himself was a beacon of attention, especially with how he looks. Sighing, he spoke, "Ma, you may be right. For some reason, just being out here on the open sea truly feels like home." "I don't know why though," Kushina just giggled as she stood at his side watching the island now visible in the distance. "Who knows," she mumbled as she shifted her gaze onto him. She couldn't help but gaze at his new appearance. Even if it was overly changed, it was still a sight to see. He looked like a man that crawled out of hell itself with the armor he adorned. It was still hard to believe the Naruto she's known for so long was now a being that belonged to a race far older than angels or demons and is the descendant of a man that shook the world to its very core. Though I'm just glad he's the same Naruto as before, only a bit more affectionate. That brought a smile to her face, for it was true, Naruto was more protective of her and the other two and more affectionate than he ever was. She wondered why he was, but didn't question it, for she honestly liked it, especially with how much they held all of them as he told what happened to him. She loved every second of it, and she could tell Akemi and Makoto did as well if their blushes were anything to go by. "Where's Makoto-chan?" he asked, to which she just looked at him before pointing behind her. She's in there finishing the last of the coordinates for this location for the future just in case. Other than that, she wants to make a map of this location as well. Naruto just gave a nod of acceptance with a small smile before he turned his attention back to the island. He could see them already getting to the dock, but when he saw the amount of ships at the dock, he was honestly surprised. Though when he saw one ship in particular having the sails imprinted with the name Marine, did he narrow his eyes. Well, this will be interesting. Alright, he was. Lowtown docks. Upon coming to the docks and tying the ship down, did Naruto and the girls embark off the ship and into what they could see, a town of some sort. Only from what they could already see, things being sold and bought were completely different from what they've seen in the elemental nations. Food, weapons, clothes, everything was so much different. The people though weren't all that different, though maybe a few people were smaller or taller than others. Though, as they walked through, the people did they gain much attention, mainly Naruto himself. His overwhelming figure and the pure aura he exuded made many back up in fright because of his intimidating stature. Truly it was annoying, but they didn't say anything and kept going, even if some were staring at weapons upon Naruto's back with both interest from traders and blacksmiths and fear from the civilians. As they kept walking though, they never did see a shadow blur from an alley, and too late to react did this blur run headlong into Naruto. Crash. Said a voice of a teen that looked to be in his early 20s, he was on the ground rubbing his head from the sudden impact. He wore black boots with what appeared to be white pants that covered the overtop of his boots. On up was the man's red sash. The last thing seen on him was a red long-sleeved jacket that was open, showing his naked chest. Much like Naruto himself, he had no shirt, showing his developing chest and abs. His black, somewhat spiky hair was clearly seen, but the somewhat eye-catcher was the straw hat on his head with a red ribbon tied around the base of it. Naruto, who was still standing from the crash, looked down at the guy before offering his hand to him. "You okay?" To which the man froze before looking up, showing his black eyes to Naruto and his unnaturally big smile. The man grasped his hand firmly before pulling himself up, where he was standing a good 6'3", just a few inches from Naruto himself. "Oh, sorry about not seeing, I was going shishishi," he said with a laugh that made Naruto quirk an eyebrow in amusement. That is before another man came up from behind the straw hat wearing man before he outright just smashed his fist on the man's head. "Damn it, Roger, must you always go running into everybody?" said a man who did the group of four, notes being in his early 30s. He being a man that had straight, long, pulled back brown hair with strands of gray could be seen. He wore a strangely designed shirt and dark green pants that ended just above his ankles, where he wore black boots. Rubbing the back of his head sheepishly, the man named Roger nodded. "Yes, sorry about that," he said with a grin that stretched his face unnaturally. The girls blinked blankly as Naruto just smirked at the man, seeing he was quite the amusing person, but inwardly he could feel something about him was familiar. "Please do excuse him, he can be an idiot at times anyway. My name's Silver's, really nice to meet you," the older man said, while Roger just grinned and pulled out his hand and spoke. "Yeah, and my name is Goldie Roger." Hearing his name did Naruto's eyes widen so much the girls thought they would have popped out of their sockets. That was the fated day did Naruto and the girls meet Roger and Rayleigh. The end. Thanks for watching my video, and make sure to check out the author of this fanfic, link is in the description. See you next time, till then, sayonara.